Everybody could please take your seats. I call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201, today, Tuesday, April 27, 2010. Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Ms. Casey?
Here.
Mr. Charleston?
Here.
Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Ms. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here. You can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is public comments, but can I ask Mr. Fiala, would you lead off the public comments on Mr. Bolden?
Thank you. A few weeks ago, we received an announcement that one of our teachers had received the Illinois Teacher of the Year award from Teachers Insurance Plan. And first thing I did, I looked at this, and it came in the mail and that type of thing. And one of the things that really sat up and take notice, there was like $1,500 checks involved with this, and I was like, "Ooh, money!" The recipient was Jason Bolden, and I called Jason in here, and I said, "Jason, what the heck is this?" He said, "I don't know, you know." So we looked into it, went on the website and that type of thing, and there is an insurance company which Jason is not part of. Okay, so teachers are recommended or by students, by parents, by colleagues throughout the state of Illinois in recognition of a service that they do. And you know, whether we look at inspiring students or peers or that type of thing. And we looked into this a little bit more, and Jason found out that, you know, there's about 1,000 or so teachers?
1,600.
1,600 teachers that were involved with this. And a student from our school district had written a few paragraphs about Jason and submitted that, and really had commented on his involvement with Snowball and his actions were getting involved with student lives. And this obviously made a strong impact on the student and wrote her story. And it's my pleasure to let everyone know that Jason was the 2008-2009 recipient of the Teachers Insurance Plan Teacher of the Year. And it's presented to him, Westmont Junior High School, Westmont, Illinois, in recognition of his dedication to the teaching profession and his students. So on behalf of the school and all of Westmont, Jason, I would like to congratulate you and thank you for all the work you've done with Snowball. Now, like I said before, there was money involved with this, and there's a $1,000 check and a $1,500 and a $500 check that's given to this school. And I'll let Jason, you can tell them about that.
Like Mr. Fiala said, because I was a recipient of the award, $500 was given to the school to be used towards enrichment programs, school supplies, or whatever. I've asked Mr. Fiala to put the $500 into the Snowflake account for next year. $1,000 was given to me to use pretty much as I wish. And tonight I wanted to present $1,000, that $1,000 to Maureen to put into the Snowball account at the high school for next year. I'd like to thank, first of all, the WTA for recognizing me today in an email to my peers. It's an important thing as a teacher to be recognized in front of your peers. It's one of the things that people think that it's all about money. It's really not. It's about the kids, and it's about being recognized in front of your peers. So thank you to Laura Riley, Grant Sarr, and the WTA for recognizing me today in front of my peers through an email. Also, would like to thank the staff that I work with, because they challenge me every day to help these kids out. And I felt that because this money came to me from a student who wrote something about me, that I made a difference in their life, that I felt that it should go back to the students. So once again, I'd like to say thank you again to WTA, to my fellow teachers at the junior high. I can't thank you guys enough. It's a pleasure to work with all of you every day. Thank you. And thank you to the
Can I ask a quick question? That check, was that a check made out, the $1,000, was that made out to you?
Yes, it was made out to me.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. And this was, a student wrote this?
Yeah, it's a current Westmont student.
What a great example. I know we all talk about celebrating success, so I applaud you and celebrate
Did you get
our
to
success.
Did you get to see what the student wrote?
Unfortunately, they would not give that. I did find out who the student was, but she's asked not to do that. So.
Okay, well, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Congratulations again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any public comments? No? Okay. Then we will move to the consent agenda. I am asking to pull out 4, 5, and 6 from the consent agenda to discuss. Does anybody have anything else to?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about number 1.
Number 1, okay. Do you want to go first then on number 1?
Sure. This is regarding handbook changes that are proposed for the Westmont junior high handbook. Just give me 1 second to find my spot. I'm looking at the very last page of the information given to us in our board packet regarding lunchroom. Number 4, the last sentence reads, they should be reminded to choose their tables carefully with an exclamation point. This is the last sentence in the paragraph about how tables will be chosen in the commons during lunch. And I would just ask that that last sentence be stricken because it seems to me kind of an unnecessary kind of commentary on what is being described here. I mean, I think the goal is to describe the desired behavior and, you know, to illustrate what consequences would be, but to add something like they should be reminded to choose their tables carefully may be something you'd want to tell a student, but I don't know if that needs to be part of the handbook. In the final portion of this page after number 7 regarding parent communication, this is another one where I feel like there is tacked on kind of a commentary about the description. Emails, while convenient, do not necessarily mean that it was a legitimate message from a parent or a guardian. If the desire is to say that emails will not be accepted as a form of communication regarding this, then I think it should just say emails will not be accepted. And then finally, I would like a little clarification about the addition of a statement about the possible use of physical restraint. And I don't know if that current language is available right now. I certainly wouldn't want to approve the handbook without knowing what that language is going to be. And that's...
I have a question in number 1 as well. On the Westmont Junior High proposed handbook, on the first page that we have, the change says students need a promotion to the next grade level requires a grade in 70% and 70% of all classes taken their 6th, 7th, or 8th grade years. Making sure I'm in the right place. I'm not. Hang on. It's number 5. Students not meeting criteria for promotion will be required to successfully complete remedial summer school coursework approved by the junior high administration. If we cut the summer school, how is this?
There are a number of different ways. They could do something online. They could do something through COD or another school district. It just has to be an option that's acceptable to the administration. And they have to put some sort of remediation plan in place.
Okay.
Did you, Linda, I actually was looking at that in that last piece down there. Do we have a clarification on that? On the very last page, what you were saying about adding in that. Do we know if there's something?
That was supposed to come from Mrs. Clouder, and I don't know, I'm assuming Steve Carr didn't get in a timely manner to include it.
So
I guess what I would like to suggest then is that at least these two things kind of go back, and that we, I guess we could discuss whether or not we want these changes that are suggested, if we want to include them at this point, or do we want to wait until we hear back from the handbook committee? Or Steve, how do you suggest we move
Well,
forward?
the only thing that seems to be an issue, 4, striking this last sentence isn't an issue, all right? And in the last sentence thereafter, number 7, so second to the last paragraph, you can just say simply, emails are not an acceptable option for communicating absences,
Okay,
all right?
and then you'll get the last
And
piece to
then
us at another time?
The last piece has to be, probably passed by our special ed attorney anyway, so
Okay.
I'll do that and send it to you.
Do you want to approve
Soon as I get
this
it from Linda.
without that piece for now?
That would be fine with me. Is that okay with you, Diane?
Anything else on that, on 1? Okay, then I'll go ahead with 4. Maureen, I have a question. This is great, putting all this in here. Are these items, these are items now off of the lists?
Yes,
Right.
these are the revenue enhancements largely spoken about on list 1.
Right, okay.
There is one
There
correction
is
too
one
that I want to
correct,
point
yeah, go
out.
ahead.
Under
C.
item C, it should be $125 a year, not semester.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Item C.
Item C, the parking fee should be $125 a year, not semester.
Okay, that was one of my questions. And then, can you explain, you have B, driver education fee will remain at $250 based on the waiver. Can you just explain what that is? Did
That's
we
the
get that?
maximum limit we can charge for driver's ed by school code.
That's the maximum, okay. So if we go then to our lists, are these all the enhancements that we had talked about? Will this get us to,
The other thing we had talked about was potential advertising at the high school in
Right.
fields. I haven't actually
Okay.
contacted any vendors regarding that, but there's potential revenue enhancement for that as well.
okay, do we know, and, so this will bring us about 115,000, is that right? Okay. Okay, that's all I
I
had.
actually wanted to suggest that we pull it and do it.
Yeah, can we, I mean, I would think actually that we should pull it, tackle the cost containment questions, and then, because if part of the cost containment includes revenue, additional revenue that we may want to consider for sports, that you may, if we approve this, like for the sports stuff.
That
may
decision's
actually-
pretty much done.
What's that?
If you approve this as is, that decision's pretty much done.
Yeah, so we can't
Okay.
increase additional, you can't increase it additionally. So I guess, can we tackle this one immediately after the cost containment? You look,
Well, I'm just going to question, what is the question? Did you want to increase the athletic participation fee?
well, it's one of the options that's presented both at the WTA and on our list to, for additional revenues coming out of the junior high and senior high sports programs. So clearly, if we, like, there's some already in here, but if we want more, then we're going to have to add more, right?
Can you add additional fees? I mean, once you set this, that's all the fees you can charge for the year, or can you actually add a fee?
Historically, we've only changed them at this time of the year, so I would imagine if you're going to set them now, in order for the high school and the junior high to get the registration materials out, we need to be pretty.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't set fees today, you're going to start to cause problems for the staff.
Right.
Well, I think.
So you want to do it after
After the
you
cost
have your
containment, right.
Just
discussion?
because it's an,
That's fine.
fee increases and, pay-to-play kind of things are part of that list that we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should definitely make a decision about it tonight, but I think the suggestion is to take it off the consent agenda.
After the-
Just
Okay.
remove it,
Consent
put
agenda.
behind the
Right.
financials.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
because if I look at the list, potential revenue enhancements, it does say raise student fees, registration, tech, athletic, band, drama, and lunch. So that is, if you want to pull that for now.
And when I came up with that $120,000 number,
Yeah.
it was based largely off of this work I had already done this months ago. So that $120,000 number was based off of this. So if you want to increase like the sports fees to be kind of pay-for-play type of thing,
Right.
obviously what I'm
That would
proposing here would be more than that.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Separate and apart from the questions that we'll tackle later, in item number I, how about we just go to $1.25?
What did you say on that?
Dr. Ball and I have gone back and forth on this one.
Yeah.
You know, you pay $1.49, $1.59 in the store for those, so.
I was suggesting on item I on the vending, rather than $1.10, you go to $1.25.
Sounds fine to me. Do you want to bring that up when we talk about this again, or does anybody have any problem with that?
Well,
$1.25?
It's been brought up now. I think we all agree. Can we all agree to that now, so we don't have to?
That's what I'm asking.
Talk about
Just
it again?
Fine with me.
$1.25? Okay. Okay, so we'll change I. $1.25. Okay, anything else on 4 then? Okay, 5, the renewal and award bid for the Westmont Junior High windows. So the total bid, what we've done on this one is we've changed the we've changed the project list from just the windows in the media center to the whole junior high. And we do now know that these can be life safety funds.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
What we did, we increased the scope, and we did it in an alternate form. So the original bid was written so that the base bid only included the windows that we were originally discussing. And the base bid budget was about $53,000. That was going to be spent out of the working cash funds. The base bid, what it came in at, was $126,000. So that project, that portion of the project was much more extensive than what the old architect had thought that it would be. Mr. Cashman recommended adding the windows for the rest of the building due to the safety issue. They're tempered glass. They're non-tempered glass. They're not insulated. They're not glazed. As an alternate bid, so the board obviously could elect to just award the base bid or elect to award both. Originally, we had received an estimate from Auburn Corporation about 7 months ago for $377,000 to do the entire building. So the fact that this bid came in at $226,000 is pretty amazing to me in a matter of 7 months from the exact same person who gave us the estimate. So, I mean, obviously, I would recommend going forward. We do have extra money in the Life Safety Fund right now because some of the other projects came in well under bid. So we do have the money to pay for it through there, and it's an amendment. It would be easy to pay for from there.
Okay, and that goes to, after this project, what would we have left in life safety then? Do you know?
Do not
rough?
have that number in front of me. I believe it was 674 or 684.
I think it was, I know it was 600 something.
Okay, okay, so that's 600. And is this something that can be done over the summer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We worked with Siemens at a certain point on a thermal grant. Does this apply?
You know, I never did receive any information on the thermal grant after it was applied for. I don't know if that was lumped into using Siemens specifically, which we decided not to go forward with because that was kind of a financing issue.
Right.
And we didn't need them to do the financing, so I don't really have a whole lot of information on that grant.
Is that what it was?
The issue, you're right. Going through Siemens and the amount of, there was no effective savings to the district to go through Siemens as opposed to do it directly. The windows were a very minimal amount of money potentially through that. It would probably cost us more staff time to do the work for the grant than we would get to do the windows.
Because I don't remember offhand what the allocation was or what the percentage was, because it was a percentage of the total cost, right?
Right. And it wasn't a very significant percentage.
Okay. If we get a chance, just revisit that conversation one time and see what's there.
Because didn't the Cashman firm go out for this? Isn't that where this came from? The Cashman firm applied for this thermal grant? And that?
No.
No, it was through Siemens.
Oh, through Siemens, okay. Any other questions on that? And then on number 6, the review and award of bid for the Manning Playground. Can you talk to that a little bit, Maureen? So the Kenneth Company seemed to have the best?
Correct. We sent the bid package out to a few different suppliers and installers of the landscape structures equipment. Based on the committee's recommendations, we bid it out the base bid and then an alternate to do some extra work to the Clatter Bridge. I'm not sure exactly what Clatter Bridge is. The Park District also volunteered some time and materials to help us out, which I've outlined in the award. The Park District will basically haul away the current rubber mulch, excavate the current ramp, as well as cut through some of the asphalt that's preventing the rubber portion from laying correctly. And then at the end of the project, they're going to reseed the area for us. And they're going to build up the new grade, they'll regrade the new ramp so that it's ADA compliant. So the Park District is donating an awful lot of time and effort for us, and we definitely appreciate that.
Yes.
But we did get approved through the state board to pay for this through the ERA funds.
Oh, we did, okay.
And we just applied for, it's kind of a double process. So we got pre-approved for it, but now the state goes through in a different process and approves it again. We just filed that today. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll know whether or not they'll fully approve it.
That's the SACIT approval? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I just wanted to just reiterate what you were saying, the Park District. I would like to say thank you to the Park District for really stepping up and doing a lot of that, as well as the Manning Playground Committee. I think this is a good day for our elementary schools, and this summer will be really nice with the 2 projects going on at the same time. This is over the summer, right?
Correct.
If we approve this, okay.
It's great work. It came together very quickly, and you know, it was great work. It was great work. Thank you very much.
And ultimately, I know the process is a pain and a bore, but going out to bid actually saved us $1,200.
That's
so,
good.
Time well spent.
Very good, very good, thank you. Okay, anything else on the consent agenda? Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda without number 4 at this point, as presented.
And with the changes.
As amended,
right?
amended. And with the changes in number 1.
So moved.
And roll call, please, Ms. McMahon?
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, approval of the Westmont contract 2009-2010, 2009-2012, I'm sorry. Any questions on that? Then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the Westmont Educational Support Personnel Association contract for 2009 through 2012 as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon?
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck.
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, I had asked to have this put on here in part with the discussion about, the next one about our discussions about cost containment. And I wanted to see if the board would like to have any comments on the public forum that we had. You know, I know, Linda, you made a comment at the end of the last meeting that everybody seemed to be prepared and that for the public forum. So my question was just, did the board want to comment on anything we heard, or did we want to have that conversation perhaps when we get to the individual items? So I'm just kind of putting that out there. Anyone had any comments?
Yeah, I would just say that we tackle it with the preface note that I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I would say the same thing too, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to weigh in with your thoughts.
I have to say,
Go ahead.
just, you know, real quickly, I know sometimes it takes a long time to put your thoughts together and get up, and especially now that we're on TV, people might be a little more nervous to, you know, say what they want to say, but I was very glad to see so many people getting up and willing to talk about their desires for our district. Thank you.
And I just wanted to mention that I know that it was a really difficult topic to have to discuss, and I felt that everyone spoke very respectfully and courteous, and I really appreciated everybody's input as well. Thank you.
I guess I'll also add on, for people that weren't able to attend, to sending emails to the board, that was great. So we have that as well. And then the next item on the agenda was basically, I know that, we're all not jumping up and down ready to do this, but we should talk about how we're going to do this. If we're ready to do this tonight, do we want to start doing this? My initial suggestion would be if we want to take list one, go through it and see if we have agreement on some areas, or, basically the question is, are we ready to start this conversation? So.
I mean, I guess my suggestion would be just to run down the list, and if it's an item that we all agree can be a reduction, then we just go by, and if someone has an objection, we just pull it for further discussion, and we might be able to kind of batch things together for a vote.
Anybody?
Go ahead. Which format do you guys want to follow? Because I did a format that's in the back of your orange folder. It's the last page of your orange folder. Pull it out. One of the things that I tried to do was match our list one and list two cuts against the format that the WTA used. And the reason for that was simply to demonstrate the overlap. Additionally, in my form, I noted where there were public comments on line items. You'll see highlighted items which I viewed as either changes or in some way controversial. So, Joel, to get to your point, which is I think there are a number of what I would consider non-controversial or sort of agreed upon items that aren't highlighted. So perhaps we could tick those off, and if they truly are non-controversial, then we could simply agree to say that those are cuts we should do, and then on other items we'll have the additional discussion. Is that workable for people?
The only question I have, Dan, is since we're just seeing this thing for the first time and we've been using these lists,
Okay.
do we want to have both of these in front of us?
Well,
Coordinate, just
I'm happy
because-
to sort of, again, I tried to, it's in a slightly different format, but you'll note in the middle columns, I note which ones are list one and which cuts are list two. And if I've moved any, there's an arrow or there's a note immediately to the left that says was list one, and if I moved it over, that's clearly an identified item as something to perhaps talk about. But I'm open to things. I just thought that it would be, given a couple of the comments that we got were specifically directed at the notion of the teachers having made recommendations, having spent a fair amount of time on their effort and on the presentation to approach the conversation effectively in that frame of reference, and then build off that.
I like that. I'm sorry.
What I like about this list actually is, to me, it's almost easier to look at as I'm looking at it, because everything's on one page. And I do really appreciate that the comparisons with the WTA are right there in front of us. So I actually like the idea of trying to tackle the ones that, well, we've talked about everything. I think it's clear, as Dan said, that there are things that we pretty much have agreed on. That there's going to be a few that we're going to have to vote on. And I guess what I would ask in terms of procedure then, do we call for a vote for those individual ones? Steve, how does?
Really, it's up to you. You can group them or go through them individually, either way.
I say we group.
I think if it's okay, if it's okay with everybody, could Dan go through the ones that are not highlighted? And we could
Let's just take,
say
let's just
stop
take them off
if there's something that.
Okay, just
and-
one second.
Yeah.
I did the same thing you did, Dan.
Yeah.
And I took Maureen's spreadsheet and jumbled around. I kept it in the same order.
Okay.
So that we wouldn't run into this.
The same list one, the
Yeah,
original
the same list one, list
format?
two, but I
Okay.
just, dabbled with the numbers because I wanted to see what happened if I took a number in or out or what,
Yeah.
what would happen to the final total. So I just want to make sure I'm following along appropriately.
Okay,
if we're
well,
gonna use
I
it.
mean,
Okay,
we'll
can
take
I
our
just,
time.
can I just ask, does everybody, okay, are we ready for this? Everybody? We're all?
I think, I'll speak to that directly, which is, I think, for purposes of the administration and the teachers
Mm-hmm.
and the community, I think we're at a point where we need to make decisions
Yes.
so people can move forward.
Well, that's kind of why I put it on here, and
Yeah.
so I'm happy
Yeah.
that we're ready to do it. But if we could, this list, I do like it as well, too, but if we could make sure that everybody has their own notes and we could all make
Fine.
sure we could
We'll
look
take
at
our
that.
time where we need to take time.
And I have a master copy of number 1 and number 2, so I'm going to kind of keep that going as we go along as well.
Okay.
too.
Can I point out just a few changes to the list, of course, because there have to be changes. Need to be snide. You'll see 3 items that are highlighted and italicized on list 1. You've got support staff cuts to replace the SASS secretarial staff member with a WESPA staff member, and savings associated with that. Reduced certified nurse position. I think that there was some confusion over what the description on this one, so I changed the description on that one. And then also at the bottom, eliminate free lunch for first graders for the first week of school. That was something that was just suggested by my food service director the other day. So right now, we give all first graders free lunch for the first week, just so they can get a sampling of the food. And to eliminate that would potentially save about $1,000. So those are new, not to confuse the issue anymore.
Thank you. Okay.
So let's try to tackle the non-controversial ones, and if there's something controversial about an item that I raise, then we can talk about it when we go to the list of items we need to talk about. The sub-pay scale change, I think, was one that everybody agreed on. Nobody had an objection to. There were no public comments, certainly, and that's a $15,000 item. The RFP for brokerage services. Clearly, nobody had any objections to that.
Can I have a question on that?
Sure.
I actually wrote down. Maureen, you had said that there would be $10,000 for that. I mean, how does that mean for our insurance services? Does it change what we have?
It would
How
change
does
the
that-
broker. It would not change Blue Cross Blue Shield. It would
Okay.
change the broker potentially.
Okay, so it doesn't change anybody's policies?
No.
Okay, so just the broker. Okay, okay. I had a note on that, and I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
On my list, the next line item that was on list 1 was, and again, I'm using a list taken from the WTA's spreadsheet at the back of its format, but I'm linking it to list 1. Eliminate support for Destination Imagination. Clearly, there was a public comment about that in support of it, and this is the part of these cuts that is so painful, because there are some wonderful programs that we are going to have to look at. Because at the end of this conversation, we need to find about $675,000 of budget cuts to add up to $900,000 of total revenue enhancements and cuts to give us room out to 2013. And so I should have started this conversation with that sort of the forest conversation first. We'll start at 30,000 feet, just to restate it. What we're trying to build to, I think, and if the board members are agreed, is we're trying to build a set of budget cuts such that we get to a number next year and beyond that leaves us solvent through the 2012 and 2013 school year. So that number, if we have $120,000 of revenue enhancements $150,000 of enrollment savings and changes. That's $270. That leaves $630,000 to get up to $900,000. So we're working towards $630,000. Sadly, Destination Imagination and some other things on this list are things that we need to find $630,000. So, is there anyone who wants to talk about that further, or can we tick that off?
I mean, the only question I wrote, or the little note that I put by it is it any benefit to reduce it, or does it just, make the program, they have to have a certain amount to make
So
the program?
we did actually reduce support for that program last year. And what ended up happening was that the actual enrollment doubled. So that's why that number is so much higher this year than it was last year. So we did eliminate some support for that program. And I think we capped it off at $250 if
$250 per student.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're going to, fund a program that isn't really a school-sponsored program, but at the same time cut a number of school-sponsored extracurricular activities, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Is there anybody who's not in agreement with Dan on this one? Let's move forward then. Okay.
Painful, but I guess we're,
Yeah, it is.
and I just want to,
So that's $7,775. Eliminate the Geese Police. I think there was pretty much unanimity in that. There is an item on list 2 that we talked initially. At first, it was on list 1, then we pushed it to list 2, which was the energy manager stipend. And we talked about that there's some ongoing benefit to that energy manager activity. But falling into the context of, I still need to find $630,000, I think I need to move it to list 1.
I think, didn't you explain to us, Maureen, that if we do eliminate that there's the cost savings that we lose? Because
Not necessarily the cost savings. We would lose support from the energy education company. So we would no longer get support on the training of the energy manager, upgrades to the software, those kinds of things we would lose.
Right now, we have that forever for free.
Pardon?
Right now, the way the contract was originally worded, that as long as we maintain somebody in this role, we'll get support, software upgrades, their training forever for free. But if we don't have somebody, then we'd go back, if we wanted to go back into that program, it would cost us money again to, get back on.
So I should ask, have we used and utilized those support services?
We have not filled this position this year.
We haven't filled it for the year.
Okay, but have we used or utilized
Oh,
the
absolutely.
firm's
Absolutely.
support,
Yes.
training, and all that?
Absolutely. We use that software regularly.
Well, the software,
Right.
but I mean, this is for the support services, right? I mean,
But that's part of
this is
the
to preserve
piece
the
of-
support services.
Right.
And what was that guarantee that we had on the cost savings? Is that gone?
We've already realized the cost.
Yeah, that was for
We've
5
already
years.
realized. It was a initial 3-year contract that we
That
paid
was-
$5,000 a month. We were
Okay.
guaranteed to save that in energy savings, and we did well above that.
All right, so, but that guarantee is, we don't
That was
get
only
that
for the
anymore.
first 3 years, that the contract would pay for itself, and it did.
And is it fair to us to assume that there's been enough education where the culture has changed a little bit so that we can continue exercising some kind of,
I would hope so.
yeah, that's what I'm hoping. And again, getting back to the whole reason about why we have to do these things. I agree that this is one of the things that we might have to let go right now.
Okay.
Okay, so there's $6,000 there. Medical insurance renewal rate savings, clearly we're going to take advantage of those $6,000. Life insurance renewal rate savings, $53.85, we're clearly going to take advantage of that. Supply inventory savings of $5,000, we'll take advantage of that effort. No high school yearbook subsidy. Again, something that didn't have public comment. If anything, there was clearly public comment about fees, support in the community for additional fees to help preserve programs and things. So it's $4,500 there.
And can I just jump in? That's something
Sure.
that's on your,
Yeah.
in there, okay.
The fee that I recommended for the high school yearbook actually is that line
Is
item.
that, yeah, okay.
Okay. No subsidy for food
Can I
service?
just interject something? I
Sure.
just, I must say that the parents that came forward and said that some of the fees should be increased, I think that's a wonderful thing that our district, that the parents are willing to do, to have it spread across the district as opposed to having the district pay for that. So I guess I want to say thank you to the families that said that, supported that. Go ahead, Dan.
No subsidy for food service meals. Again, no public comments, no other discussion that we've had. That's $3,000. Eliminate the police officer at our meetings, $2,040. Eliminate the Thanksgiving feast, $1,500. I would hope that, I know Mr. Cashman has offered to cover half of that.
He actually hasn't offered, he's already sent a check.
Very good. So, hopefully we can find some additional support in the community for that as well. There's a line item in the WTA's thing that I don't think that we can require yet, which is the non-printing of paychecks and the forced direct deposit. So I don't think we can just institute that next year, but it's clearly something we can talk about this summer with the teachers. No printing of W-2s is $500. Faculty newsletter by email only is $500. And reduced copies of public packets is $250. So.
And that was with trying to get the public packets online at the same time we post the agenda so that people can come to the meeting with information?
And I will say that Mrs. McMahon and I worked on that for the public packet for the forum, and I think that went pretty well. I know a number of parents said that they did go and do that. So was that, Judy, did that require, I don't mean to call you out, but did that work?
It's fine, but for the regular public packet, we don't usually include things that the board hasn't approved, like
Right.
ratification, regular payroll, the monthly bills, things like that are usually added, posted, or included in the public packet after the meeting.
But for instance, like the public packet that people have here now, we could put that, we could label it like post or pre and post meeting? Okay.
Well,
Thank you for that.
I don't think there's necessarily any requirement that says you can't do that. It's just we haven't done that.
Right.
So, I mean, you could put it out there ahead of time. That way you're not posting things twice. You could just post it all as one thing.
Except that
Yeah.
they're not,
Except
except
we
that they're
can't do
not
it.
approved.
The board hasn't approved them yet.
Like the payables.
Yeah.
That just goes in after we approve it.
It should go after.
Even tonight, Joel, we made some changes to stuff that we got, so I think that's what we're saying, is that the things that need to be approved can't be posted until after.
But the packet, like that everybody has here, that could go online and then just add
Okay.
to it. So, but I want to thank you for helping us test that. So.
The next three items I've highlighted because, and I think maybe the first two are things that we can perhaps tackle quickly because it's the reduced support for fee waiver students, for participation fees, or no waiver of TCDs for the same for fee waiver students. There was clearly a public comment noting that it's $1,250, and even though it's on list one, that we should consider taking it off of list one, recognizing that those are kids who come from families who need that support.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess the only comment I have on that is originally it was $1,500 for the fee waiver students for the athletic, band, and drama fees. So do we want the $750 or the $1,500? And kind of what happens if we actually raise fees for sports, some sort of sports participation fee? Then you know, fewer kids are going to be able to, so we might have to, I don't know if we want to consider making any other adjustments to that dollar amount based on what we might do.
I think if we say that we're not going to cut it, in other words, we're going to continue to support it, you know, there's effectively zero savings. So it becomes a zero amount for purposes of savings discussions.
Yeah, so we take it off the
Yeah,
list
it's just
entirely.
a- it's just a
All right, I
Yeah.
have it off,
Okay.
both of those off
Good.
on my list anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because Linda, you
and
brought
that-
that up a couple meetings ago about how we should not take away from the students that need it the most, so.
I
rather
don't
than-
recall if I did, but I do know that it's been said
Yeah.
at our meetings.
So,
And then I have another line in here about the field trip costs, which we should talk about, so I won't touch on that now. We'll keep going on sort of stuff that less controversial. That was the.
You know what, Dan,
what's-
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Because I
Yeah.
really think this is a simple one.
Okay.
Along the same lines of what Dan is talking about with not getting rid of our waivers for kids who are the most needy. The 6,000 number represents field trip costs. If we were to take the percentage of students that we know are on free and reduced lunches and continue to waive field trip costs for them, but make everybody else pay, we can still save $3,900 on this list. And that's something I'd kind of like to recommend along with the same argument of, you know, these kids won't be able to afford to go on field trips if we don't do this. And along the lines of raising participation fees.
My only concern with that, Linda, is that by school code, you cannot identify free and reduced children.
Right.
In any way, shape, or form. So if the teachers are the ones that are going to collect the fees, essentially, for field trips, the teacher would have to know who's on free and reduced lunch, and I don't know that right now they all do. So I don't know that that's a good idea to share that information.
Then can
Need to
there
be
just
not
be,
identified.
can't there just be something like a principal's fund where teachers can go and say, these 3 students have not turned in their money for field trips or something, and without identifying, I mean, it's probably still going to be about that same dollar amount if we're estimating.
I don't know, we'd have to come up with some way
We
to.
call it something different.
You just simply have to, instead of having individual teachers collect the money, you just have to have the money collected by the office. It's not a big deal. That can be done.
What is is it a different cost for each field trip, or based on?
Yeah, I would imagine it is.
The cost of the transportation.
Depends upon
it's-
the cost of the transportation, and it's, you know, bus drivers generally are paid an hourly rate plus a per mile rate. You know, usually about 200, it usually costs us about $2.50 or so a mile for the bus plus whatever the bus driver's hourly rate is.
It's based on also the length of the field trip. So if it's an hour versus 5 hours,
Right.
we pay a different rate.
So
So what are we
if
gonna
our
do?
students go to, like, say, for example, state competitions or whatever.
Well, those aren't field trips, remember?
Right.
Those are not.
No,
No.
field trips, we're talking
Educational
about
field trips.
field trips that are part of the curriculum process, you know, part of the curriculum program, and are, you know, basically the teachers want to take the art class to the Art Institute, for instance, or to a play for an English class. I mean, those are the field trips we're talking about. We're not talking about athletic events, we're not talking about, you know, any competitions.
so let me ask, like, as a parent who, you know, you get this form home and there's a fee on there, are we, as parents, not paying for that now, and the district is picking that up?
Right now, you're paying for entrance fee to the
Entrance fee,
museum or
okay.
wherever it is that they're going. Maybe if there's a lunch fee or something in there, but no, for the most part, no. Not
So this is
transportation.
Right,
basically.
Dan, I was wrong.
Okay,
This isn't a quick one.
Yeah, and I
right.
didn't figure it would be.
okay.
Well, let's come
Sorry
back
about
to that.
Pull it off for now.
Simple.
Eliminate the tech support position is the next one, and it's a big, that, by the way, covers the WTA's, what they call Category 6, and I think those were amounts that were like furthest away from the student experience, I think. Next category was Category 5, and all 3 are List 1 items. Eliminate the tech support person. Obviously, this is we had comments in our last meeting, that this, it will have an impact on timeliness of responses to certain things and some other stuff. You can't lose a person and not feel it, but I didn't get the sense that there was any particular controversy over the decision. There were no public comments about it, and we haven't spoken about it amongst ourselves. So it's a big dollar amount, and again, it's a human being, and that's the part that bothers me most. But we need $630,000.
I agree.
So $62,595. Reduced custodial buildings checks. Originally, this was eliminate at 40. At this point, we're talking about reducing them by half, so for $20,000 there. Then this third item is reduced.
Just to clarify with the building checks.
Yes.
When you're talking about the age of our buildings, there's a real risk that, if you're only going to check the buildings once, that there will be a problem with buildings because they find problems with the buildings during their building checks regularly, whether it's, leaky pipes from the boiler at Manning or pipes, burst at the junior high, et cetera. You do run the real risk that you're going to lose some part of the instructional program because you're going to have to cancel school because the building is not going to be habitable because of this. I mean, that's why we do these building checks. They're not just kind of a thrill with buildings, especially some of whom that are 90 years old. And I think that needs to be clearly articulated again. I mean, there is a real legitimate, safety issue to those building checks. Not saying that they can't be eliminated, but there's a clear, real
except
downside.
that we're not talking about eliminating them, and to the extent that
you're cutting them in half.
That the custodial staff can figure out a way, because they included some comments in their section about and Mike, I appreciated them, was ways to do it more efficiently, more effectively. Whatever that is that we can do, clearly, we still want to do, and we appreciate very much the work that the custodial staff and the building engineers do in that regard.
This reduction in building checks, was that just eliminating the weekend checks, or?
Basically would eliminate half of, so instead of a Saturday and a Sunday check, there'd only be one during the weekend.
Just one during the weekend? Okay.
And I guess I would reiterate what Dan says. I think if we have the custodial staff look at this, I'm pretty confident they can probably come up with something. Because again, none of these are easy, but we're not eliminating.
Right.
We're just reducing from 2 to 1.
So then this brings up the athletic problem or any other club problem that we have by not being allowed in the building if there's no custodians.
To some extent, but in reality, we're not including that within the scope of this. I mean, that's separate over time. But the WCMA contract requires that if people are in the building, save an administrator, that there needs to be a custodian there.
But that's not what this is, right? This is something different.
Just specifically the 1 to 2 hours.
This is tied to building checks.
All right, building checks, okay.
So as a board, are we, I'll say, I'm prepared to leave the $20,000 on there. Is anyone else, does anyone else want to pull that for further discussion or take it off of the list?
I'd say leave it on.
Okay. And then the next item was reduce administrative and custodial cell phone usage. One of the things we talked about or question that was put to Maureen, or it was actually a comment in the staff write-ups, was the notion of going to voice only and dropping the data plans. And we would clearly have to buy new phones, I gather, because the existing phones wouldn't work to those particular things.
Correct.
But the ongoing savings to that would be about $4,400 a year or $4,500 a year.
Correct.
with a one-time cost upfront of $600 or thereabout.
How often do you change out the phones? Just as needed, or?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah, I mean, I've had this one for a year and a half. Prior to that, I had the other one for 3 or 4 years, so.
So
I think that's a good compromise to this.
So that means they won't be checking their email, which
Yes.
is a lot of communication back and forth via email. So when they're out of the building, they,
You'd still have texting. You'd have texting and cell usage, but not email.
But not email.
Phone.
But not email.
Right. So if it's used for emergencies and someone needs to find someone in an emergency, they could do so via phone or text.
Correct.
I think that's a good compromise.
Okay, so what was that?
So it's
Dollar amount.
45.
The ongoing savings would be $4,500 a year.
And that includes this 750?
Well, the
No.
one-time cost to replace all the phones would be $600 to $700.
The 750 was basically set aside if you were going to reduce the one custodian at the junior high plus the curriculum director position.
Okay.
That was what that 750 was.
So this is
Sounds similar.
this is a new approach to that same line
Yeah.
item. It's a totally different approach to that
Well,
same
that's
line
well
item.
done.
So, Kathy, you look
yeah,
you
no,
look
it's all good.
reticent. Yeah. Okay.
Just
Okay. Going further, then, that's the Category 5 from the WTA, Category 4 from the WTA. Postpone technology purchases for $90,000. I think there was some unanimity for that. Next item is curriculum director, and we'll leave that alone because I know that there were folks who will want to talk about that. I should have highlighted that, my apologies. Reduce professional development options was $20,000 below that, and the WTA was both supportive of that, and
Can we just touch on that? The only thing I added is that was about a third of what's allocated for professional development. So if you bumped it up to 50%, it would be 30,000, right? Wasn't it like 60,000 a year for that? So I wanted to know if anyone was in favor of that.
Say that again, Joel?
To increase that dollar amount from 20,000 to 30,000, it would be a cut of half of what's been allocated for professional development instead of a third, or
Instead of a
roughly a
third.
third. Anyone object to that?
you might have the WTA objecting.
I'd rather keep it at a third. It's an appreciable cut, and I think that that kind of staff development is what kind of drives our progress in our curriculum.
But what you're saying is you want to increase it.
Increase the cut
So
by
that,
another 10.
so we're only, increase the cut
Yeah,
to 30,000.
right.
I see what you're saying.
I don't agree.
Okay.
Dan, this is, the 20,000 is based on the WTA, the Teachers Association?
well, it was the estimate, yeah, I mean, both groups had that same estimate as for reductions of professional development options.
I'd like to leave it as is also.
I guess the question is, since you brought it up, do you want to pull it off to discuss it later, or what
Well,
do you?
if we have
Go around the
1,
room.
2, 3 that say no, is there somebody else?
Joe, why don't we okay it, why don't we leave it there at 20 for now? And if, as we have discussions about other items, and we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, let's,
we can
I'll
Look at it
We can
later if we
revisit it.
need more
come
money.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is that good with you?
Fine with me.
Okay.
So we'll leave that at 20. That's Category 4 from the WTA presentation. Category 3 from the WTA presentation is reduce the Westmont Junior High School custodian to half-time, $25,504. Next one was reduce the Miller secretary to half-time, $15,632.
I have a question about that, and it's in relationship to the you know, let's pull that one for the time being, till we talk about the nursing position.
Okay. Seasonal grounds, have we filled that position? Okay.
Nope.
Can it be done in overtime?
Well, overtime's more expensive than hiring
Is it?
somebody.
Okay. Gotcha.
Time and a half.
Okay.
So, I think our recommendation, I mean, again, administratively, our recommendation at this point is to eliminate that position. We haven't filled it. We think the current staff that's there is, you know, better situated to do the work as a two-man crew than previously, so.
And I think if there were any, you know, immediate needs, we have a few people that we can call for subs here and there to get the fields up to par, so hopefully we don't have the same issues that we've had in the last couple of years.
Have those issues been mostly remedied? Because they were issues a couple years ago. I mean, have they been repaired and now just require maintenance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's also a personnel component to that.
Correct.
Oh, correct.
And that's been remedied.
Right. Okay, thank you for refreshing my memory.
So so are we saying this is back to
We're
20,000?
gonna, I mean, I guess the question is, should we eliminate it? Because presently it's on list 2.
Yes.
Eliminate it.
Okay,
Take it off.
very good.
So then it's 20,000,
So it's
not
back to
10?
20,000.
20 instead of 10
Right.
on my
I
list.
don't know how it ever got to 10.
I'm not sure. And perhaps the one item, I think that there was true unanimity, eliminating French fries, $8,100. Assistant yearbook advisor for the high school is $1,450. And then in terms of the junior high school secretary and questions about the SACID secretary questions, we'll talk about those and iron those out later. Going forward, other non-controversials, this is category 2 from the WTA, part-time social workers, hiring part-time social workers, 1 at each building, the $13,000 amount. PBIS stipends, our list 1 recommended cutting all of them. WTA recommended half. The administration's observation is that PBIS has become an integral part of the culture of the community and of the schools. So for purposes of this list, I left it in at list 1 as all of those stipends being cut.
I like the half. Only cutting half.
You want to pull that one too?
Want to pull it for now?
Yeah, that's fine. Frost, ACT prep course for $5,000.
Could we just talk about that again, just so that people know what that is, in case we had talked about that before, that was a course that we're still
Honestly
offering.
say, I would love to let Dr. Ball talk about that one, because I don't remember a whole lot of background
But I
on that
remember
one.
we're not eliminating any, we're still offering ACT prep.
We don't actually have the course, correct?
We didn't offer the course because enough kids didn't sign up for it to take it.
Okay.
It's that simple. It eliminated itself.
Okay, but it's,
There are
there
other
can sign
still,
up for options, okay.
there are
that's-
other ACT prep options
okay.
available.
Perfect, thank you.
Frost Soft class sponsors, 3,000 is on list 1. And then we moved Panther prints from list 2 to list 1 for $3,000. We'll leave the sports, the conversation about cutting sports or fees to later. I included on my spreadsheet the notion of elimination of the snowball sponsor. Clearly, Jason has contributed $1,000 to that tonight, so that number isn't $1,756. If we chose to eliminate the district's support of it, it would be, if we supported the remainder, the savings would be $1,000 based on the check that was presented today, right?
No, that check would potentially, at least what they did this year is the snowball and snowflake programs were budgeted to only be, Friday after school, Saturday programs, not during the day Saturday, and so, or during the day Friday. And what basically, at least based on this year's numbers, you needed $1,300 to cover the cost of those subs.
Okay.
So that's above and beyond the $1,758.
So what's a $1,756?
That's the cost of the stipend for the supervisor who organizes it.
And I'd like to propose that we kind of lump that with the other participation fee items
Yeah, I would like to
and keep it on the list.
keep it on the list. Keep that one on the list, because I don't know that $1,000 check was to offset
Okay,
this.
that's fine. That was my misunderstanding.
Okay. So we'll keep that,
I'm sorry, we're keeping it,
keep it on the list. We're not
cutting it?
we're keeping on the list for now.
Okay.
We're
As
keeping
our-
it on the list to cut. Because we're going to try to make up that money with participation
With fees.
Okay, so these four, reduce frost
So it's still a
softs,
savings?
those four things.
Well, I didn't touch reduced fresh soft sports. I didn't touch junior high school clubs. I didn't touch junior high school sports because we should talk about them later. That's clearly going to be a discussion.
Right.
So I didn't even touch those
And I would like to eliminate the snowball sponsor onto that,
as a discussion point.
as a discussion point.
Okay,
That's
fine.
what I'm saying.
All right.
Going further then, there's a highlighted item that was categorized in the WTA as in Category 2 without notation of an economic amount, which was department coordinator stipends at the junior high and high school, $22,577 at the junior high, and $35,478 at the senior high.
I would like to pull those off for a further conversation.
Those are
These are things that are negotiated in the contract, correct?
Yes, but just because something's in the contract doesn't mean it has to be filled. So the board has the unilateral right to not fill those positions from year to year.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to pull those two things off for right now.
Okay. Westmont Junior High School foreign language, 48,768. And then the last two items down below, and clearly there are any number of items on list 2 that I haven't touched that are included in the WTA's categories. I'm just focused primarily on list 1 items right now, but 2 items at the bottom of my spreadsheet within the WTA category number 1 is reduce driver's ed sections at the high school for $23,100, and eliminate or reduce summer school. The WTA initially had agreed/recommended elimination. It's included on our list 1 for $9,000. At this point, I believe in their last presentation, they've included it as a mid-level impact, and they've suggested reducing it by half.
I like that. Reducing it by half.
And I have it off my list of cuts.
In that
And I
case,
think we should
we'll-
keep it on, so maybe we need to vote on that one.
We'll talk about that one.
So we'll pull that off for right now.
What about driver's ed?
Yeah, where does that 23,100 come from? Because
It's
we
on an
didn't
old
really,
list.
we didn't really
and
talk about
it
that.
was in
Right,
the
we
WTA
didn't-
presentation.
It was on the list 2 years ago, and one of the things that we did administratively 2 years ago, because of a smaller class size, we were able to simply shrink the number of driver's ed sections we offered, which saved us, a net of $23,000 in teacher salary. So there's not more to be saved there unless you want to have a point where kids are simply not going to get driver's ed as sophomores. They'd have to wait till their junior potentially to get driver's ed. So there's not a savings there. Similarly with the replace, teachers at BA1, that sounds great, but, as Maureen and I've articulated a couple of times, when you look at what our average teachers really cost, we look at our non-tenured teacher, the average non-tenured teacher cost is about $58,000, which is almost exactly MA5. And so you can put that in there, but in reality, you're going to significantly impact your pool. And especially when you're looking for the kinds of people that we're looking for this year, when you're looking at, psychologists, speech language people, these tend to be people often who have a master's degree. The social workers have to have a master's degree. It's a great idea to say that, but in reality, that's a savings you will never really realize.
Could we try?
We always try,
Other than
but it's not something I would want to put on there as a guaranteed savings. We always try to hire as, low on the scale as we can to find the best qualified person at the least cost. But to put that on there, I think is, you're simply going to, in the end, have a $29,000, overrun somewhere in your salary budget.
I guess my question is that if the WTA has suggested this, other than, like you're saying, the areas that, like the psychologists and stuff like that.
There's nobody else we'd be hiring this year. I mean, we're not hiring any classroom teachers this year. We'll potentially be riffing a few hiring teachers. So you're looking at hiring social workers, potentially a speech and language, and potentially a librarian are the basic hires we're looking at. They all require a master's degree.
And I understand what Steve's saying is that, to build this into our model is not a safe thing to do, because you're not necessarily going to garner those kind of savings. And as long as, we try our best to hire the best qualified candidates for the least amount of money,
it's not uncommon for principals to come to me with somebody who's at master's, plus 60 with 9-10 years of experience. It happens every year, and I send them back to the drawing board. Coming up with an average at MA5 is work. To say we're going to come at BA1 is ridiculous. It's just not going to happen, especially when you're looking at the staff you're trying to hire. It sounds great, but it's not going to work.
Anybody have any other comments on this?
So there's no savings to be realized?
There's no savings to be realized there.
Okay. It's 23, okay.
And that
So-
driver's ed has not been on the list.
That was
for a
on last
while.
year's list.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was-
that's fine.
And again, you could make more savings there, not for this year, potentially, because you're already past the point of no return for certified staff, but you could in future years if you wanted to basically bump driver's ed to be a junior class instead of a sophomore class. And basically for a year squeeze, really low, but I don't necessarily know if that's a great idea either.
Yeah. Well, in terms of discussion points then, there's the swimming pool, there is the field trip discussion, there is the curriculum director discussion, there is secretarial support staff discussion.
Beck, did we eliminate CAC during the day?
You didn't speak to that.
Oh, I didn't speak to that, I'm sorry. It was recommended by the WTA. We have it on list 2.
Right.
I think,
We discussed that kind of at length at our last, not the public forum meeting, but the meeting before that.
I'm just saying tonight, I'm just kind of looking at this. So,
And I just wanted to refresh people's memory about that conversation, because
Yes.
our concern was that if the meetings were not going to happen during the school day, would the meetings happen? And I
Correct.
thought we kind of came to terms with that. but
Right.
If I'm wrong,
The answer would be no, they won't.
Right.
I mean, you won't have people who are regularly there because, you know, they have other commitments after school for coaching, sponsoring, et cetera, so.
so I'd be afraid to put that on there.
Exactly. I thought we had kind of settled on that myself.
Well, I have it on my list to eliminate, but
I do too. So what you're saying is you want to take that off?
I think
Well,
that
it's
should
a-
not be on list.
Yeah, it's
on our
presently a
list.
list two, so let's,
Okay.
and I guess what I'll do is summarize at this point, if I, you know, based on what is non-controversial, if you will. There's about $480,000 of what we'll call, you know, non-controversial cuts. And there's, you know, 210,000 or so of what are controversial. Actually, my number's off by 20, so it's 460 at non-controversial. And, you know, if we want to get to $690,000 or $680,000 of cuts, we've got $230,000 to go. That said, one of the things I did not, in that 690 target or 680 target, that is inclusive of the notion of class sizes. On option A, we included a line item to increase class sizes, you know, K through 3 and, excuse me,
Five.
K2 and 3-5. And so I clearly haven't touched on that, and I have not touched on the technology director either. So just to raise those two issues presently, I'll just say I'm not in favor of eliminating the technology director in any way, shape, or form. With respect to class sizes, clearly there were any number of public comments that were directly opposed to those, so I think it's incumbent on us to honor that and find the money elsewhere. But it means it means we must find the money elsewhere.
I have to agree. I think we heard loudly
Yep.
from our,
So
yes, we do have to find it somewhere. So I would say
So that's $70,000 we got to find. And it'll go directly to what, one of the reasons I highlighted the sports line items and the club's line items is because they're dollars of size. The WTA included them in their Category 2 in mid-level impact, and they recommended instituting additional fees for sports at the soft level or cutting certain sports, junior high clubs, and junior high sports. Those three line items in the WTA's presentation were $67,250, which comes remarkably close to the $67,895 that is recommended vis-a-vis class size reduction. So, in light of the public comment supportive of fees to maintain and preserve the activities, and in light of the public comments supportive of retaining class sizes where they are, my recommendation would be to institute fees across all of those sports, raising that money. Now, the danger in that out loud, and I know Maureen and Dr. Ball have spoken to it, and everyone, I think, can feel it, which is if you raise sports participation fees that much, if you raise club participation fees that much, will we lose kids who can't participate? Sure. And the answer is sure.
Well, I guess, I would like to say that the fact that, first of all, thank you, Dan, for putting that in that context, because I think we've heard very clear that people do not want these eliminated, the junior high clubs, junior high sports, and the frosh-soft sports. So if we really don't want to eliminate that, and it is that costly, that, is I think that's another one of those painful things, but we did hear our parents say that they would bear more of the cost. So I think,
For not only that, too, if I could just interrupt Marie, they also recommended fees for, you know, student government, project-oriented kind of clubs, you know, labs, things like that as well.
right, but that's already factored in, right, Maureen? I'm sorry, what Linda's talking about.
No.
That's
They're not
factored.
in that list 4?
No.
They're not, okay.
And then I also think it's shared across the board, the idea of paying fees to participate.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, it's a hard one, but at least at this way, we're not
Do we
eliminating
think we'll
them.
really be able to recoup all the total cost, or,
Well, there's no way.
No.
I mean?
Well, the total costs
not
are
for-
twice
not for
that
sports,
number.
But like even for the clubs at the
No.
elementary level, 11,000, you're never gonna get that,
No, I
right?
mean, honestly, the cost of some of those sports is nearing $1,000 per kid.
Right.
I don't know how you could charge that and expect to
The only-
recoup that and expect any
The only
participation.
time I know of a situation where, you know, participation fees entirely covered the cost of a sport was when a high school district chose to eliminate hockey because of its expense. And the parents said, no, we want to keep it. So the fee for hockey was $850 a student. It lasted 2 years, and then at the end of the time, they couldn't get enough kids to play, you know, to cover the cost, because then the cost kept on going up from $850. So, but that's, I mean, for a number of covering the cost of something, that's the kind of number you're talking about. Now, hockey's an expensive sport, but it's not as expensive as football. And so, you know, $850 per student is fairly expensive.
And I had that list that Maureen prepared, I don't know, somewhere here.
The cost
of
per
the cost
student,
per
yeah.
student. I guess in looking at this and thinking about it over the weekend, I just made reductions in these as opposed to, you know, and I just arbitrarily assigned like 10% for sports, if they could cover 10% of these, and then not.
Well, but how are you going to, I mean, you're going to have to cut
And I suppose that would be
10% of
through
the
fees.
sports. You can't cut 10% of basketball because they're part of a conference. You're going to want to just not play 2 games.
Yeah, but a dollar amount. And then that would be made up with fees.
So the
Or more-
parent
more.
would,
So you're saying
Cover
increase the
10% of the
fees
cost.
Increase the
to some
fees.
degree, not
so
decreasing
that,
basketball.
I mean,
by
that
10.
fee would vary greatly by sport.
Right.
Okay, something like golf, which is a expensive sport, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly, would have a much higher rate, and it would be based on this year's participation. So it would be hard for me to cost out, I'm going to use golf, if there's 12 kids in golf and it costs us $12,000, it's $1,000 a kid, based this year, then I institute that fee for next year, and then my costs go up, or I have greater participation, you're always going to be doing the catch-up game.
Well, it's never bad if you have greater participation, you make money.
Well, if
It's
you
the other
would-
way is
yeah.
probably much more realistic.
So, I mean,
No, the sports.
obviously, my goal, for simplicity's sake, would be to implement a fee across the board.
Right.
And try to target something that's manageable for parents, that's realistic for parents to pay. I mean, I can shoot for 10%, but to institute a different fee for each sport, I just think is going to get very complicated. So perhaps the $50 that I spoke of at the junior high, $100 at the high school, is it enough?
Is that on, that now you're talking about on,
That's back on the consent
Back
agenda.
on
item.
consent, item 4. Perhaps
So-
that's not enough. However, I clearly don't think that $800 is something that a parent's going to be able to support.
I guess I would say, I agree somewhere in the middle of all that. I think can we increase the fees without having, you know, perhaps parents pay for the whole thing? And so that it'll affect this number somewhat.
And one of the other things we had instituted before was a cap, that parents would only pay for 2 sports.
Right.
I'm recommending getting rid of that cap, so that would help alleviate some of this.
But that's within the $115,000 estimate that you've already counted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally, I like that, because then that is somewhat a pay-as-you-play, and it's not, an enormous amount of money, but, so this could be one of those things we don't really have an answer to right now in terms of what the savings would be, but there would be some savings, but it doesn't eliminate these things.
Well, I mean, at some level,
So-
we have to estimate, you know, what we think we're gonna save here, because we're shooting
Right.
for $230,000 of extra money that we
Right.
gotta find. If we're not gonna do the class size stuff and some of the other stuff. And again, we still have to touch personnel questions.
Well, if you're
Right.
not going to go, if you're not going to raise class sizes,
Yeah.
you actually have to come up with $300,000.
No, my total math was 690, not including that. Even on option A, here, was, you lost the DSA, you needed 900, 150, and 120 is 270. To get to 900, I need 630.
Okay.
So if I have some agreement around 460,000, which is all that stuff we ticked off is not controversial, then I need to find $230,000 extra at this point.
Well, again, respectfully, do we have to do that this year? Can we put some of that? I know if we don't do it all this year, we have to do more next year. But I'm just saying in terms
Well,
of,
we're going to have to do more next year
I know,
anyway.
I know.
It all depends, I mean, really, it all depends upon what the state says at the end of May. So to make cuts limited to what we have for option A, for instance, right now, you know, who knows what the state's going to finally say? Because they're
I
broke.
have a question. Since we're trying to look for money to keep the clubs and the sports and just try to find, you know, increase fees a little bit. Let's take a look at these department coordinator stipends. If we get rid of those or don't fill those, what happens to the duties in those? Does it just not happen?
Some of those duties would go back to just the teachers collectively. Some of them would be covered by the administrators. Some of them might be taken care of by the curriculum director. It'd be sort of a mix depending upon what the duties. Many of the duties that they have are actually quite clerical in nature. You know, ordering supplies, setting up schedules, things like that, that administrators can probably do.
But this is in their pay. These stipends, they're being paid to be
Yes, they're being
department
paid
coordinators.
to do those right now. And if they didn't do them, it would fall back on the combination of the administration, the clerical staff, and to some extent the teachers collectively. When the
Is there a way
teachers
to-
had department meetings, they'd simply have to rotate taking turns, for instance, running the meeting.
Is there a way we can combine some departments
You could do that too. You could combine,
so that we don't get rid of it altogether, but we
could.
could put like math and science together or something, or?
yeah, you could go to sort of a division approach, and that's really, it's doable. I mean, that would change to some extent sort of the department meeting structure we currently have. Or for the people who remained in those positions, there'd be a little more extra work if they had to run 2 meetings. But it's all doable.
To the extent, okay, I'm going to bring up a couple things that I handed out to everybody today. And I don't want to jump the gun on some of this, but there was this article in the paper today about the school districts and money and the Tribune, and it talked about funding, specifically the West Chicago case. And one of the things that the state is considering, it was on the front page of the Tribune today, it said state legislators are now considering a bill that would permit school districts.
If I may, because I understand what the paper says, but the paper isn't accurate. Let me just be very clear.
Okay.
What is there.
Fine, let me
Okay,
finish. Let me finish.
All right.
And I would actually ask Marie if we could kind of stick to what we're talking about now in terms of
I'm
this
going
list.
to. I'm going to. That's what I'm doing. I'm getting to that. So because of that, because of this that came out today, I called our attorney and asked her for a legal opinion on this, and I have a copy in front of everybody for this. And what she has opined with another attorney in the firm on finances, she has asked us to take a look at that there perhaps might be some leeway that exists in our working cash fund. And I will say thank you to Maureen for sending this resolution to us, because the question that she is giving to us is this question of what is the intent and the reasonable expectation of the board. So her question, and again, I gave everyone a copy of this, was that she said we could have a discussion as to what is the present intent and reasonable expectation of this working cash. So her suggestion, as well as another attorney in the firm, this is our general counsel that weighed in on this, in light of today's paper, whether it's accurate or not, but that there's some movement in the Senate and the House on this. So the question is, her suggestion to the board is that we discuss whether we would ask these specific questions to bond counsel as to whether we can take this, some of this money and put it into the education fund without tax consequences and the like. And because, Maureen, you sent this to all the board, I did forward that to Terry, Terry Hodges, our general counsel, and she has weighed in on this. And so what I'm saying is I would like to ask the board if this is something that we should look into. According to her opinion, her legal opinion, that there perhaps is some money that we can look into to go back to our bond counsel and look and see if we could allocate some of that money, not all of it. And part of it is because when that bond was, when we went for that bond, there was not a particular list that went with that. I'm not talking life safety. So I just got this afternoon. I copied it for the board members, and I'm asking the board if we would like to pursue this to see if we can perhaps find some money to go towards the education fund.
If I may.
Yeah, Dr.
Right.
Ball.
First, the specific issue addressed in the Chicago Tribune article, it deals with the fact when working cash bonds are sold for capital projects, as ours were, all right, and I know we've been through this several times, our bonds were sold with the intention, the expressed intention to be used for capital projects, right? Though not a specific list, but to be used for capital projects, not to support the ed fund. Because that's how they were sold, if we use them for something else, we could have problems with tax objections, etc. The specific objection dealt with in the Chicago Tribune article today is that bond counsel generally told everybody around the year 2000, in this particular case, in this district in 2002 is the issue at litigation right now, was that when you abate the interest from the working cash fund into O&M, you can just do that directly, right? What the state law specifically says is you have to abate it to the education fund and then take it from the education fund as a second motion and abate it to the O&M fund, right? And so, because that intermediate step was not taken, because the final purpose was to get the money in the O&M fund, that's why the bonds were sold. That's, how the money was to be used. Bond counsel said you didn't have to go through that intermediate step of having that second resolution. A number of school districts, went through that. There were a number of tax cases. At one point, one of the appellate judges said, nope, the school districts were wrong. They should have done that as a two-step process, not a one-step process. In fact, even the way the appeal decision was made, he was basically, the judge basically said at that time, well, I understand that, the school districts didn't follow the letter of the law, but there was really no harm, no foul, because the purpose was the same, to get the money to the O&M fund.
They followed the intent of the resolution.
Right, they followed the intent of the resolution. That is now, going to the Supreme Court ultimately, and right now it's being dealt with from a legislative standpoint, where there's a Senate and a House bill basically to grandfather all of those situations with working cash bonds and to allow in the future a simple transfer of the money from working cash to an O&M without the intermediate step of going through the ed fund. In no way should that Chicago Tribune article or any of this issue be looked at as there's a way to get operating funds out of those working cash funds. To go to the attorney and ask them is simply wasting money, but again, that's only my recommendation.
Okay, and again, I'll have to say that I understand that that's your objection, but I think that question should come to the board. We have a legal opinion in front of the board based on the attorney's, our general counsel's review of the resolution. And the question is,
What she said is go to bond counsel.
To go ask bond counsel some very specific.
Bond counsel's going to say no. We've talked to him
You have the
already.
email that I forwarded to the entire board from bond
Right.
counsel. That states exactly what Dr. Ball just said.
And your email
Give it.
referenced about the playground equipment, because I looked at that. What I'm saying, in that email that you forwarded to us, because the exact sentence that's there is the exact sentence that our general counsel is pointing out to, is what is the present intent and the reasonable expectation of the board? And so my question to the board is, should we spend a little bit of time looking into whether this money can be used? We have 2.8 in our working cash fund.
And I'm going to say no, not at this time. I think we need to go back to these lists, and we need to finish up with what Dan started. We can talk about this at another time. I'd love to have this discussion at another time.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is
But I don't think that this money, because we don't even know when this will be settled and what the outcome will even be.
This is absolutely separate from that. And if I could, again,
And she's
go
saying,
back.
then let's make it separate and let's deal with
Absolutely.
the matter
Thank you.
at hand.
And what I'm saying to you, let me try to clarify again. I'm
Maria, I
not
think
talking
we
about.
understand.
No, we're
We
not.
do. We understand that you want to go back to the attorneys about this.
What's the rush?
What's the downside to that?
As I understand
Because
it,
this is not the discussion that we're having right now.
We're having a budget discussion.
Having a
Right.
budget discussion.
So let's deal with the budget.
I am.
This is part of the budget. Our working cash is
Right.
part of our budget.
Right, but these decisions have to be made tonight.
well, it's not part of.
Correct, I agree.
No.
These need to be made.
Chapman's email, actually, that Maureen forwarded, they did actually reference that what they referenced was that there was some leeway in the actual projects that we could identify for purposes of the capital project use of the funds. But they also did reference, other than the resolution, there was reference in the offering statement that was floated to ultimately the bond buyers that referenced that the dollars were to be used for working capital thing. So asking Chapman to revisit that as whether or not you could use those funds for general operating purposes, A, I think they have addressed it. B, I wouldn't ask them for a full opinion in any way, shape, or form, but if they can pop us a quick email confirming that they don't believe that it should be used for, general operating expenses, have them send us a quick opinion, or excuse me, a quick email, because I don't ever, I'm reticent to ask lawyers for opinions ever. But if they, just, why don't we recirculate? Yeah, why don't we recirculate the email? Take a look at it. But we need to get back to this question of.
Can I just add one thing real quick to that
Yes.
comment? I think the House bill that is being referenced is 6041. And if I'm looking at this and understanding it correctly, the proposal is to allow school districts to increase, abate, maintain, abolish, and recreate working cash funds. And it provides the monies in the working cash fund may be used by the school board for any and all school purposes. So I think that's the legislation that might
That is,
being considered.
that
in
may be
Springfield.
what the summary is from the webpage, but that is not the intent of the bill.
The practical intent of the bill is exactly what Dr. Ball said, so that there is no longer the intermediary step of having to transfer from working cash to ed and then out to O&M or capital projects. The reason that we're included on the lawsuit is because we transferred directly from working cash to O&M. That is the only reason we're named in the lawsuit.
I guess my point for bringing this up is not to talk necessarily about the West Chicago case. That's separate. The reason I brought this up, if I may be allowed to talk, is because that the state legislators are considering a bill that would permit school districts to transfer working cash bond money to any school fund.
You
So
can do
that's
that
what I'm
already.
saying.
Marie, you can do that already.
That's
you
what
can
I'm
abolish
saying.
a working cash fund to go into the ed fund. You absolutely can, if that was the intent of why you sold the bonds.
And again,
In
I
our
will go
offering
back.
statement, that was not
And
our intent
again,
for
I will
selling
go
bonds.
back to saying, we have general counsel for a reason. Our general counsel has weighed in that to ask the board what its present intent and reasonable expectation is, which is what's in front of us. I don't know, I don't understand how we are not going to even look at this. If
But I
there is,
think-
if there's any possibility of having some money for the education fund.
Right, but I think
Because the
what
point
Maureen
is there
trying to
is no
say
possibility.
that when the bonds
And you
were
are not an
sold-
attorney, with all due respect.
No, I'm not.
We have general counsel for a reason.
Yes, we do.
For the same reason we have architects and everything else.
I understand that.
Excuse me, Marie. I think that Maureen and Dan both answered the question. Maureen said that when the bonds were sold, they were sold for capital projects, and Dan said that Cashman already confirmed. Or Chapman, I'm sorry,
Chapman said that we
already
can use them for,
confirmed
we can
that-
use them
that
for
you
capital.
could use it for different projects, capital projects, but it does have to be used for capital projects.
I am asking this board if we want to spend some time looking at this question. If this board does not want to do that, to look at any kind of funds for operational, educational funds, then that's fine. I'm asking that question.
I would like to do it.
I would like Dan to send us the email.
Well, actually, Maureen
Have it in
had
front of you.
forwarded it.
Maureen, if you have
yeah.
the email, would you send it to us, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
But I don't know if it asks the question that's being asked here, which is that line about present intention and reasonable expectation. So I think that's the question that needs to be asked.
I think it does. So Maureen, would you send it to us, and then we could take a look at that?
Right now.
And I would,
I have my email in here.
and I,
And I think that now we kind of have an answer to your question.
No.
That people would like to move on at this point and look at these lists and make some decisions that are time-sensitive, and that this can be taken up.
Absolutely.
At another meeting.
and what I'm saying is can we ask Chapman and Cutler these specific questions that are in this email from our general counsel?
In light of the fact that it's still in the process of being decided at the state level?
This is not, no, I'm sorry, let me try to say this again, and if I may be allowed, I understand that time is of the essence.
I know, but you
This is
keep
not
saying
the
the same
state
thing
bill.
over and over again,
If this
Maria.
board does not want to look for educational funds, fine, I
No,
just want to be on
Don't
record.
state it that way. No one is saying they don't want to look for money.
Then
Then
let's
let's ask
ask,
the question.
let's ask the questions that are right in front of you.
I say we move on at this
If
point.
you want to
Does
move on and
anybody
not
else?
look for the money, go right ahead. I'm just,
No, I don't think anybody's suggesting that you approach council on this at this point.
okay, we don't want to do that, that's fine. I just want to be on record.
Just a later date, that's all we're asking,
Right.
not now, a later date.
This is not, and again, I will reiterate, this is not the law. This is not the new state law. This is what we currently have
But I
right in
can't
front of
count
us.
on money that hasn't.
We're not,
We
we don't have
have
to count, we're just
2.8 right
asking a
now.
question.
If we can work with this and then move on to that at another date, I think that's what we're saying here. We're not saying that we don't want to look for money. We're not saying that we want to ditch the idea or where you're going. We're saying we want to deal with this here now.
I think we have to work on the, I think we have to work on the assumption that it's not available.
If that's, if
And
we want to do
and if
that,
it becomes available,
Go ahead.
then we can look at ways to restore other things. But
if we don't
I think
ask,
we
we're
have
not
to
gonna
work
know.
on the assumption that it's not available.
Okay.
Because right now, Chapman said it's not. And I think it's an open question. It's being litigated. You know, I think we have to work on the assumption that it's simply not available from working cash right now.
we have not asked the specific questions that are in front of us.
But we can't assume that it's available.
And the
We already
majority
have
of the board
2.8.
has said that they would like to move on from
Okay,
this
let's move on.
discussion
I'm
at
just,
this
I just want to go on record as saying that. So let's move on.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we were talking about department coordinator stipends. I don't know that we've resolved it. If we go to some combined format is there a number that we save that's less than 58? I mean, is there a number that we want to target?
We assume that's half or no?
That's all.
Well, half would be the reasonable target. You know, I mean, if you were going to do it, you would go to division coordinators and cut it in half. And you do that in either one of two ways, either, you know, group like departments, or you group an elective department with a non-elective department. Different, you know, different districts have approached that in different ways.
Do the department coordinators work closely with the curriculum director?
To some extent. They work more directly with their principals. It depends. I mean, all of the department coordinators, for the most part, are involved in the CAC when they're on a CAC.
Oh, so that's an important piece of that. Can we still do that with a half
Well,
reduction?
yeah. I mean, that's, half is a reasonable number there.
What if we do half and then, who knows, maybe we'll find some money someplace else.
Okay. So I'm going to put in savings at the department coordinator levels between the two buildings for purposes of this discussion at $30,000, which is a little bit more than half of 58. But it's also a round number, and I like round numbers.
It's because they're easy to add.
Can I just want to look up what the, I guess I'm going to weigh in that I don't agree with that.
What,
That to eliminate the department coordinator stipends.
any portion of them?
Right,
Any portion of them?
any portion of them for this round, yes.
I think that we should reduce those to half. I'm okay with reducing those to half.
Can we take a vote?
Yeah.
We can
I mean,
take a- I think we
suppose-
should-
yeah, I mean, and I think, and in general, we do have to resolve this question of how much we're cutting from the
Right.
budget.
Right.
So I think, in fairness, we should resolve the question, we need to resolve the question
Right.
for purposes of people.
As well as all these other
Yes, and I'll
items.
tell you what, I'll tell you
That's what I'm saying.
the discussion items I have, just to review
Right.
them one more time.
Right.
It's the Miller Secretary, it's the pool, it's the field trips, it's the curriculum director, it's the junior high secretary and the question of the SASD WESPA secretary, it's the PBIS stipends, it's snowball, it's department coordinators, and it's summer school.
Right.
So as we go down each one of these, let's resolve what direction we're going to go tonight.
I
for the
think
time
that
being.
sounds, I think that sounds.
So at department coordinators, suggestion's been made to target cutting $30,000 of department coordinator stipends. I'm okay with that. Not that I'm okay with that. It sucks.
That's a reasonable choice, given the
I think
options.
that's a reasonable number, and we need to find dollars.
Can we just do a voice vote on that? Would that be appropriate, or?
No, I think with this, we should weigh in, because my vote is, I don't agree with that. I think that, because I think that could be tied into the curriculum director position. So that was my concern, is that if we could tie that into the curriculum director, in that we would leave the coordinator stipends as is.
How would you tie it in?
One comment I would like to make, though, too, is several parents commented at the hearing or the public forum that they felt, and please, teachers, don't take this as any disrespect, but some of the parents commented that they felt that, the teachers need to contribute in some way as well. And I'm seeing, all of the cuts that we're making, that parents are going to be taking a hit by paying more fees. I see students taking a hit. I see, administration and staff, and some staff taking a hit. So I'm just trying to level this out where everybody's taking a little bit. So that's why I don't feel it's unreasonable to say that the stipends would be a reduction of 50%. I don't feel that that's unreasonable.
But we already have talked about some, positions, like, junior high.
Teaching position?
So far, there's one teaching position that's
the,
been eliminated at all.
Junior high Spanish.
Foreign language at the junior
foreign
high.
language. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's some.
I know, but there's, the majority of this is in other areas.
And I had it down as a reduction. My thought was that we could maybe keep
So it's
another
not a
position.
complete
This kind of
elimination,
spread
it's
it
a
out,
reduction.
and we could keep another position maybe.
So the discussion is to cut it in half?
Yeah, that's what.
Is that what
Yes.
you were looking at
Yes.
originally? Okay. Then, that's-
And I'm a yes.
okay.
I'm a yes to reduce it, yes.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say that I wanted to leave it there, so I guess it's moved that we're going to eliminate those, divide those in half, those two.
Okay.
You know what you want to tackle next? Summer school, snowball, PBIS? As long as we're on stipends, let's talk about PBIS. The WTA had recommended eliminating half, or $12,000 in savings on PBIS stipends. We had included $25,000 of PBIS stipend elimination.
Hold on a minute, Dan.
Yes,
Yeah, for all of it, for half of it?
Half.
for all of it.
Oh,
Okay,
Okay,
two
let's
alls.
go. Okay, wait a minute, let's go around. Kathy, you said
All.
all? Okay. Diane? All or half? This is PBIS.
I guess because the discussion was that it, that with the current level that it's at, that all would be something we could do at this time.
So you want to eliminate all?
Yes.
We don't want to.
I don't want to eliminate
I
all.
mean,
That's a
vote.
dollar that I think I can,
Dan?
All, because we have to, because we're going to be woefully short of our target.
So you're for eliminating all?
I would, yes,
Okay, Joel?
because we're going
We
to be
have all as well.
Eliminate all? Linda? All. Kathy?
Oh,
Okay. So, so we're eliminating PBIS stipends, 25,000, then the whole thing.
Yes. From there, why don't we touch a couple of these other non-personnel items? Linda, do we want to, on the pool, you know, obviously, we have a proposal from the gentleman who operates the swim club. We need to work through that. There is
Talk
a.
to Maureen a little, excuse me, talk
Yeah,
to Maureen a
please.
little bit about it. She needs a little more time
Yeah, it's-
to work some things out regarding a possible arrangement. So if we, could we?
Yeah, I was
A lot
gonna
more
say, that's,
time?
that, I
Could we
mean,
pull this off?
if, I would not count on making any savings there this year. I think what you need to do is go back, and if we renegotiate the contract, we can. But there are, you know, personnel association issues that have to be dealt through with collective bargaining with both probably the custodial union and WESPA, in addition to dealing with the swim clubs. This is not an easy, simple, okay, you know, take care of. There are also insurance and liability issues, which, to be honest, I'm not sure if they can even be overcome.
Okay, but we
So-
will take it up at another time.
Okay.
So we're
And
taking
we'll
it
work on
off-
that, but
Off for now?
I don't think I would assume that you're gonna make that $10,000 up over.
Okay.
Okay.
Field trip question, have we addressed that question?
Well, Dr. Ball seems to think that it would not be that difficult to somehow give some kind of funds to students who need them for field trips. So I would still like to be able to think about saving 65% of this original total.
I think you can think the $3,900 is a reasonable amount to save. I think that's doable.
And let the administration work out
We
the,
just have to put a process in place
Details.
to take care of that, but that's doable.
So what we're talking about is the field trip cost borne by parents. The savings would be $3,900? Is
Approximately.
that where we're at?
Yes.
right, meaning that students will start paying for field trips. The majority of students.
And this is, again, transportation?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any objection to that? Everybody, we're okay? $3,900, okay.
Snowball, there's a stipend for $1,756. That was actually on list 2. Question is, should we charge it, you know, somehow in additional fees or something like that? Or I mean, Do we want to address that
Favor of
question?
that. I would be in favor of fees for snowball
Additional fees
participation.
for snowball registration?
I would be in favor of fees to cover that $1,700.
Okay.
So, okay, so, any, Kathy?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay, Joel?
I'm okay with fees on that.
Fees.
Fees, okay. So the snowball sponsor for $1,750, we will cover in fees,
Yes.
okay?
Let's return to the issue of summer school.
You know, I want to bring up a point about that. I
Sure.
think we're a little
Yeah,
behind schedule to even get summer school off to a
Just,
start this year.
thank you. Just to clarify, about a month ago now, we talked about when we're putting summer school on the list at that point in time, that at this point for this year, you know, that's a decision that's now been made. You know, I mean, normally, we start advertising for summer school students in February. We haven't even started to post positions to hire, you know, potentially for classes to then get stuff out. At this point, it's really, for all intents and purposes, too late to opt for summer school this summer. And I thought I was clear about that a couple of months ago or a month ago, whenever that was first addressed.
Well, I guess I would say that the WTA had it on their list as reducing it, so I guess the question is the decision that we absolutely can't do it? Because this whole discussion is
I'm not going to say
kinda late.
absolutely not, but I don't think that it can be done effectively or well at this point in time. The person who would have to do it is shaking her head and agreeing with me. I understand it's on the WTA list, but I don't believe Grant's going to run summer school, nor are we asking, and there was a look of shock for those of you who can't see his face when I suggested that. So it's, you know, we're just too late to do that this year. That's why I tried to be clear about, if you made that decision before, that effectively you were going to eliminate summer school for this year. If you want to add it back next year, that's fine. You have more than enough time to do that. But for this year, effectively, you've eliminated it.
So then that stays on list one unless there, shall we go around
And even
the
a
table?
scaled back program, there's just no way to even look at it.
I'm not going to
see
say
if it's
there's
a
no way,
possibility.
but I mean, unless you're willing to say, okay, what is the scope of that scaled back program and make that decision right now, no. I mean, it's just no. The scope of, you got to find people, you got to post the jobs. You know, when we told our teachers we weren't going to offer summer school, many of the people who potentially would have been available to teach summer school may well have taken other work as well. You'd either CAD or in another district, or have decided to go to school.
Well, I guess I'd like to see a little bit of checking into it before, you know, just to see if there's any possibility of doing something.
We should just decide tonight.
I'd like to see who thinks it should stay on the list first, and then
Go
if
ahead.
it's voted that we want to keep it on the list, then that's how we should move forward.
Okay.
I wouldn't be opposed to looking into it for next year, but I think it's reasonable, that it's a difficult task at best at this point.
I think it, as a practical matter, it was done a month ago. I understood it to be done a month ago when we couldn't staff it. The issue for us even going forward, though, is we still are going to be short money, not just this year, next year as well. Next year as well. There are any number of summer school programs that were far more robust than the offerings that we had, and we need to leverage our community resources and our neighbors to make some of that stuff happen. A similar district, matter of fact, the district almost exactly like ours, Lyle, also doesn't offer a summer school program at this point, just by point of reference. Anyway, given that it's a practical matter, we'll go forward. I think what we're down to at this point.
Okay, hold on, let's go back. So are we saying now we're going
vote on this, or?
we're going to take, are we saying to go take it off of?
No, I mean,
I mean-
it's a savings. It's a
I mean,
savings
that's what
for
I'm
this
saying.
year.
So do we agree
Yes.
that it's,
Taking it off.
we're taking it off, the entire 9,000?
Yes.
Yes,
I don't agree, but
We're cutting it, right?
keeping it on the list.
Well, I'm saying, but we're cutting it.
We're
That's what
cutting
I'm
it.
trying to get.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay.
At
So
this
we're
point,
cutting
we
summer
are,
school.
at this point, we are down to personnel issues. Another secretary, which ties into a certified nurse conversation. the curriculum director, and then the 2 junior high school secretary conversations. In the interest of tackling the big one first on the curriculum director, I'll jump out on the limb, as it were, and just say my piece, which is, as a district, we need a curriculum director, but our economic situation is such that I'm of the opinion that we can't carry one right now. And I also think it's a binary decision. I don't think it's a halfway decision. I think it's a binary decision. We've been through a round of 3 years of CACs. We've addressed our core curriculums. We've addressed our textbooks. We've addressed a number of sort of the curriculum maps and all of that stuff. If and when we address the question of how we're going to raise new revenues and get new revenues, in my opinion, this is one of the first positions that should come back, because we cannot be without one of these kinds of things for a long time at all. There is risk, in my opinion, in leaving it lag or just sort of be out there for a year, but we are woefully short of what we need to assure that our district is even solvent through 2012.
I know, and Dan, I totally appreciate that, and I just, what I would like to do right now, because everybody knows how I feel about the position, I want to just draw attention to public comment at our last board meeting, at the public forum, because we've all been really cognizant, I think, to pay attention to what the community said to us. And though many people did not get up to speak about the curriculum director, there was somebody who spoke on behalf of a large number of people, and we got an email from her today summarizing the things that they thought needed to be kept, along with ideas for how to support them budget-wise. And so that was what Marie Doherty presented, and the curriculum director is one of the positions that group of people said was essential. And there are about 30-something people's name attached to the email. So when we're talking about how many people said they were in supportive of this thing or that thing, I really want to point out that this comment by Marie, she was speaking on behalf of a large group of people who apparently got together and made these suggestions to us. So there were a lot of people who came out in favor of the curriculum director, along with the reading specialist and the tech director and the athletic director/dean and things like that, along with their suggestions to increase fees to pay to support clubs and sports and things like that. So I copied the email and I brought it with. I don't know if any of you didn't get a chance to see that.
I saw it.
You all saw it? Okay.
Okay,
So I just want to, I do want to point that out, because I think we were all very persuaded by all the people who got up and talked about the reading specialist and other things that were mentioned. So I think it's only fair to say that.
So what would your vote be then, Linda?
To keep the curriculum director.
At 100%?
Yeah.
Okay. And Dan, Dan, your vote is to eliminate? I know it's hard. I know.
Yes, is the short answer, and it's not because it's a good decision. It's because, from an economic standpoint, I have an obligation to figure out ways to keep the district solvent through 2012 and 13. I have that obligation.
Okay, Kathy, did you want to?
Yeah, my first preference is to keep the curriculum director full-time, but if we can't do that, then at the very least, half-time, because I don't think that we can afford to not have some curriculum director guidance in some capacity at all, so.
Well, and I don't think a part-time curriculum director can handle.
No,
Decision, like what Dan was saying about the kind of decision it is, a binary decision.
I think it's a binary decision, in my opinion.
Well, I hope in some ways we'll be able to utilize to the fullest extent our highly trained teachers, many of who have advanced degrees, and if there's a way to have the CACs continue that sort of curriculum development in some sort of form, that we proceed without a curriculum director at this time. So I would vote yes to removing it from the, or to keeping it on the cut list.
And I guess I will say too, I think to piggyback, I think that the curriculum that we have gone through is we've gone through one series of curriculum, and I think with this last approval of the social studies, I think we have gone through one complete phase. And as we move forward in looking for an interim superintendent and a permanent superintendent, I think one of the things that we could look at is somebody that has curriculum background, some of which we have in front of us. So I guess, again, it's a very hard decision, but I guess I would move in the direction of, again, I guess that went back to, as I was saying, back to the department coordinators and with our staff, that we don't eliminate curriculum movement, that we at least have made movement in our district, and we continue along with that. So I would also vote to eliminate.
I think I'm like Kathy, I'd like to reduce it. I hate the idea of getting rid of it completely. But as a dollar amount.
You know,
When I have
this, I'm sorry, Diane, I just want to add something. You know, the position, how is somebody going to do it part-time?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as it is, you know, we even talked about reducing it to 10 months. I mean, and who's going to want to do that job at part-time? I think that's something to think about. And in the absence of a permanent superintendent, we're going to have an interim superintendent who we hope will do a fine job, but who is not invested in the long-term interests of the district. We're eliminating, you know, the kind of positions where, you know, we have the leadership positions in the buildings in a way to save some money, those stipends. You know, where is all this stuff? You can hope and pray all you want, but how is this stuff really going to happen? We need to really think about that. And I know it's a lot of money, and I know, you know, and I'm going to bring up the, you know, the point Kathy brought up, that's the, you know, ugly thing that nobody wants to talk about, which is, you know, the teacher's contract. You know, can we somehow save some money that way, so that we are still moving forward with the academic goals of the district?
You know, and that brings up a good point. We were, in our orange packets tonight, there is a letter from the WTA that they're asking us to come to the table.
No, that's not right. No.
So Diane, thank you for letting me interrupt. And
Read the letter carefully.
Okay.
That's not what it says.
But, okay, then go back to your point. I think
I think I was finished.
Okay.
But Diane, thank you. I just felt like, you know, I wanted to address the part-time thing that both you and Kathy brought up.
I understand that. I just hate eliminating it. I hate eliminating it.
I do understand what you're saying, Linda. You know, with we do need to try to keep the strength of the administrative team and the you know, make sure that the CAC processes and the curriculum stays strong. And you know, that's why I think eliminating that position would be just very detrimental to the district.
Diane,
really
I'm
do.
sorry, what did you say? You said?
I like the part-time number versus a whole.
Well,
I realize it's a
but if we're
difficult
going to
thing to
lose
give.
the person altogether, or not be able to get someone to fill that position at a part-time level, then I would agree that we need to keep it full-time.
Because if you make somebody the .5 curriculum director and then have them .5 in a classroom, for example, really, how difficult is that going to be for
That
somebody
wouldn't
to
work. You'd have to
actually-
either hire it as a standalone .5 position or combine it with some other non-classroom position.
Oh, okay.
So far we
I
have,
wouldn't suggest including it with a part-time teaching assignment. I don't think that would work.
I don't either.
so far we have 2 at halftime, 3 at eliminate. Kathy?
I would like to keep it whole.
Okay, so we have 7, and we have 3, 2, and 2.
Just run it by again.
We have 3 at eliminate.
Yep.
We have 2 to keep as whole, and we have 2 as halftime.
Well, I did say my preference was to keep it whole.
Okay,
If
so then we have
possible.
3 at eliminate, 3 at keep it whole. Diane, do you want to weigh in here? If we're going to take off the half off the table as to eliminate or keep it at whole?
Can we come back to this one?
Sure. At the end?
Yes.
We'll come back to this, okay.
The Miller secretary to halftime.
Okay, that one's tied in, I believe, with the nursing position. It's not really.
No.
Not
They're-
really,
they're-
I mean,
they're
it's
separate.
independent.
If, just for clarification, last year, when the board had a secretarial study done to sort of make sure that we're using our secretarial staff efficiently, really, the one suggestion they had from the respective, if there was a place in the district where we actually had more secretarial staff than we needed, would have been Miller. Now, clearly, there's some advantages to having 2 full-time people in the office, and so that's one of the reasons for leaving that at that point in time. You know, but at this point in time, if you're going to make a cut, that would be a place to, you know, to reasonably cut clerical staff without having a large impact on the program, to take that position to a part-time position.
And there are two secretaries at Miller?
Currently, there's 1 7.5-hour and 1 6-hour secretary, if I remember correctly. Right.
You said there was a study, a secretarial study?
Yes, about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, a year and a half.
It's $15,000. Again, we're woefully short. So, I'm going to be supportive of maintaining that cut.
Okay, let's do this. So if Dan,
Okay, so just the secretary position that's tied in with the nursing savings, is that the other position at Miller then?
Yes, if you, to clarify that position, and there's a fair amount in the superintendent's report that articulates what the actual savings are tied to that. It's not the number that was presented last month, or at the, excuse me, last board meeting. One of the things that you agreed to when you ratified the WESPA contract today is that we can no longer have staff who are not either RN, who are not RNs, distribute medicine. All right, to teachers. So right now we have health aides who are not RNs who've done that. It's been part of their job description. The law changed a few years ago, and it's been back and forth. There's, you know, that's an issue that people are constantly trying to address from one side or the other in the legislative process. But right now, we've agreed contractually not have those health aides distribute any medication to students. So we're going to have.
I thought the agreement said they wouldn't be required to. That's different than
That is
forbidding it.
Yes. So they would have to volunteer,
Okay,
right? So realistically,
we don't know.
you know, we're going to have to be in a situation to have RNs in there to make it part of their job description. Because again, if it's not part of their job description, there's some issue potentially with our insurance of having people do something regularly that's not part of their job description. So since it can no longer be part of their job description, right, we're going to have to replace those health aides with RNs, or at least one of those health aides with an RN. So again, therefore, the recommendation to eliminate the certified nurse, which right now works half-time in each building, is supported by those 2 health aides, and instead of having a certified nurse and 2 health aides, we'd simply have 2 full-time RNs, one in each building, and they would also have some, they would do some clerical work as well, right? And then a nurse, a certified nurse in a minimalistic level to address those few students that have IEP issues that require a certified school nurse, of which at most there are 2 in the district right now that I can articulate. So it's a very small number, right? And again, we've gone years without having a certified school nurse at the junior high or high school and have functioned very well with those 2 RNs. So it's totally doable. Right, so that's what that issue is.
I have one question then. In the school code, it says, under no circumstances shall teachers or other non-administrative school employees, except nurses and non-certified registered nurses. So if it says no teachers or non-administrative, does that mean an administrator could
Yes.
give medication?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the administrator could.
Okay.
So if you want our principals at the elementary level to give out all those medications, instead of being the instructional leader in the building, they could do that,
When the nurse is not there.
which would be half the time. Because the nurse is only in one building or the other at a
Right.
time.
Right.
Yes.
I guess the issue I have with the way, I mean, I know I put together a spreadsheet and Maureen has hers, and, I don't want to do battle of the spreadsheets, but, to combo in the 2 secretaries in these savings is somewhat misleading, because they have so many other duties that they perform. I mean, what percent of their time is actually dedicated to these tasks? We've lumped it in like they spend 100% of their time dealing with healthcare issues for the students, and that's not the case. So I think that's not really a fair representation to say that this savings is going to be $46,000. I tried to look at it from nursing to nursing standpoint in what I put together, and even with the numbers some extra numbers that Maureen provided on her spreadsheet, I still come up that this is going to cost us more money down the road in the tune of about $22,000 a year. I don't know, depends on how you look at it, but, I mean, I'm taking the nurses out, or the secretaries out of there, because I think that's not really appropriate to lump their whole cost in this savings.
Just a quick, and coming back to this conversation very quickly, did we resolve the question of the Miller secretary?
Thought we did.
No, because there's another Miller secretary here.
I'm saying reduce
In the
Miller
nursing
secretary to
position,
21.
there's a second Miller secretary. That means there'll be a half-time secretary at Miller and a nurse, and that's it.
No, there'd be 1.5.
1.5 secretaries.
So this line item,
1.5 secretaries.
No, you'd have one RN who would also.
Yeah, the decision.
Well, that's if you did the
Part-time.
RN, that's if you did the RN. But let's assume for the time being, kind of just to tackle the Miller secretary question, the half-time Miller secretary question, let's assume that nothing else changes in that building. Nothing else changes in that building, just for this moment. Are we okay with taking the Miller secretary from us to half-time, to save the 15?
let's go back. There's one secretary at 7.5 hours and one secretary at 6 hours. Is that
Yes.
right?
It's, one of them works an hour or so less a day.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is right in front of us here is taking the one that's 6 hours or whatever and eliminating that by half. So that's what, so there would always be one secretary at Miller,
One
No.
full-time.
one full-time.
1 8-hour, and then one that would be 3
And
to
then one
3.5.
that's
Yeah.
3.5 hours a day. So,
Currently, are you not
As
considering,
proposed.
not considering the nursing
yeah,
issue?
and that,
Yep, just leaving everything else
Okay.
the same.
so if we agree, this is, in front of us, it says $15,000. So if we agree to that, then we have 1.5, I hate to say it that way, one full-time, one half-time secretary at Miller.
Yes.
Okay, and that,
And the question, I just wanted to bring it to a head is, are we, it saves $15,000. So I'm okay with that, just to say it out loud.
And I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with
I
that.
think I'm.
As you've stated it.
Yeah, as
Good.
one
There, that's,
full.
I would agree with it. I
Okay.
think I have that on my.
Now, having
Yeah.
interrupted this conversation,
Right.
going back to the question of certified nurse for a second.
So we agreed that we're going to do that with the
Yes.
Miller
If
secretary.
you keep
Okay.
your full-time certified nurse, you're still going to have to hire an additional RN.
Well, we
That's an
haven't
additional cost.
addressed that question yet. We're still going to get to that one.
Well,
Run that by
and-
again?
If nobody,
And-
if nobody is willing to,
Our insurance company has been very clear with us, once it's a voluntary requirement, it can't be in their job description. If it can't be in their job description, our insurance company has said they don't want people doing it.
But administrators can.
but it is in their
Yes.
job description if they volunteer for it.
No,
If right now, it's in the health aid's job description.
no, it's actually not, Steve.
No.
Well,
We
it's
removed
out,
it as
it's
part
out,
of the
removed as
negotiations.
part of the negotiation process.
It's done.
It
We're
was a
right.
very
No,
big-
as I said, so it's out now,
Right.
right? So as of tonight, it's all done. So it's out now. So it's not going to be in their job descriptions. Since it's not in their job description, our insurance company does not want them doing it. So we won't let them volunteer to do it anymore. That was very clear with the whole process, through the whole WESPA negotiation process, that, that fact from a WESPA standpoint was ultimately going to come back and have an impact on secretarial staffing, because we would have to hire at least one RN. If we don't reduce the certified nurse, we still have to hire one RN to meet those needs.
Well, and I guess we go back to the other thing that if we are looking at public comments, I think we heard very strongly from our community as well as our teachers about this specific position. So if we're now hearing that,
We heard comments, though, Marie, both ways. And if you
Right.
looked at the book, and the comments that were in our book,
Right.
there were comments both ways.
Right.
So,
but I'm just saying reiterating what we heard before. We've heard
There
that.
weren't
And
30-something comments like there were about the curriculum director.
well,
I took notes, I counted.
yeah, I did too.
There were also people who articulated, for instance, in public comment, that our certified nurse supervises the other staff, et cetera. That's not accurate. Our junior high nurse and our high school nurse are not supervised by the certified nurse. They're supervised by Linda Clouder. So,
Well, I guess the other thing is that is one of those items that's on list 2. Are we going to tackle list 2 tonight?
I wasn't even at this point there yet. I mean,
Yeah.
but as long as we're talking about it, we should try to resolve it. We may as well try to resolve it.
I thought the nurse was moved back to list 1 at one of the previous board meetings.
I would like to make a suggestion that we keep it the same for this year and revisit it, because I think we need to take a little closer look at separating out healthcare services and secretarial services, and are there any other options available to keeping a certified school nurse besides hiring another full-time RN? And we don't really know how that will all play out. I mean, I guess.
Well, we have a legal obligation to keep a certified nurse on staff to participate in IEP processes, yes? We have a legal obligation to do so, yes?
No, we don't.
Okay, what do we use in lack of a certified nurse that incorporates health concerns into an
We have a
IEP?
legal obligation to involve a certified nurse in those IEPs which it's required.
And how do
talking
you
to-
screen that conversation? Who
Well,
screens that
Somebody,
conversation?
to be honest, there's no case law that's very clear about that.
Okay,
And
and
there are
there's-
many, just as a point of clarification, in fact, there are many districts that do not have a certified nurse
What do they
at all.
use?
They don't, because they
So they don't
simply
have
don't
kids with
have
IEPs who have health issues incorporated into
the
them?
issue addressed, at least when you talk to special ed attorneys, is that requirement is very nebulous. And as I said, in our case, and we have a very high special ed population in our district, there might be 2 students who really reach that threshold.
Okay, but there's still conversations beyond those 2 students that are filtering and
And they're often,
conversations,
and
yes?
those, not necessarily.
Professional judgments have to be made.
Professional judgments are often made by the RNs.
Okay,
And
but-
right
but
now, they're
that's-
made by
but that's
RNs
not- I mean,
all 7-12.
unless they have certification, they're not allowed to put that input into an IEP.
No, that's not true.
No?
It's only the issue if the IEP, if the medical issues in the IEP
Okay, but-
directly relate
All
to
I'm
the
saying is
educational
somebody has-
process.
Somebody has to make that determination.
Right? And usually.
That would be the IEP
administrator.
team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but on the health concern? Who actually makes the IEP decision that, yes, this is incorporated into the IEP as a health matter, where we have to incorporate it into the IEP? There's a yes
Ultimately,
and a
the
no.
director of
There's decisions that
special
have
ed
to be
would
made.
make, a combination of the director of special ed would ultimately make that decision in conjunction with
So
SASS's director.
So that person would be making health decisions.
No, that person is making a decision, ultimately, that's the person who's approving the IEP on the point of the district.
So why would you recommend keeping a .2 CSN?
Because that eliminates the argument that we're having right now,
How so?
from a standpoint that the person is clearly available in situations where we feel we do need
Except that
somebody.
.2 is a revolving door job. Who keeps a .2 if we can't keep a .5?
Oh, they're just paid by that. though,
I think
right?
that,
They're just paid by that,
Well,
point two,
you
as a
could
C.
point that, you could also work out with SASSD and
That
bring
contract?
somebody contract from SASSD. We have many contracted employees from SASSD who've been here for a long time, for long periods of time. We also have one of our RNs who's long-standing in the district, who is a certified nurse, though isn't paid that way. And if the .2 didn't continue, we could work out something with her and ask her.
Does she maintain that certification?
Because
Yes, she does.
because the intakes all happen at the K through 5s. All the intakes are there.
Every intake.
Well, not
we have
every,
kids moving.
90 whatever percent.
Yes, sir. But in some
Yes, no?
cases, we've had RNs who've done the preschool
Intakes are K through 5 for the most part, like 90 whatever percent, yes?
All right.
I think we should, this is a conversation I think we should postpone. I think we should remove this from our list, and we should have a real conversation about how we deliver services
I don't
to
think
our
that we
students at a
can,
later
Joe.
time.
Let's
I
just
really
vote
don't
on
think
it.
that we can.
We need to keep.
oh, we
moving.
certainly
All right.
can, just because it's on the list, I don't think we
No,
have to.
what I'm trying to say is that we have to make a decision because we are going to have to hire one RN at least,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
And so if we do that and we keep the certified nurse position, then we are actually going to be spending more money.
But from what I have heard, if we postpone this decision till next year, till we do evaluate our health thing, if we have administrators in the building, they can pick up what the secretaries and teachers cannot.
Do we? Do you want them
right?
to do that?
We
I
just
think we
realized that the administrators are not going to be in the buildings all the time to be able to administer the medicine.
I know, I guess what I'm saying is the amount of time that the nurse is not there, do we know for a fact that that is absolutely not the time that an administrator is going to be there, and it's not, everybody's got cell phones, can anybody be reached to administer this medicine?
We
That's what
talked
I'm
about this at
We did. We
length
talked
during
about this.
negotiations.
And
Right.
And it's, go.
I mean, if a child needs the medication, the child needs the medication, right?
Generally speaking, isn't that scheduled?
You cannot, if the certified nurse is not in the building at that moment, you need to have somebody on staff
Right.
there.
Right.
The child cannot
But it
wait.
says it shall not prohibit a school employee from providing emergency assistance to students. So I mean,
Right.
if you have an asthma issue, the teacher's generally going to know about that, I'm assuming, and.
Yeah, but it may not be an asthma situation. It could be a diabetic.
It can be a lot of, I know, it can be a lot of things.
I mean, then you could probably call 911. I mean, like Linda said, we talked about this ad nauseam.
Right.
There's.
But
a
now
lot
we're
of-
talking about something else. We're
But
talking about this
What I'm trying to
position.
say is that we are going to have to hire at least one RN this year.
And I think that, you guys have a lot of questions, and Steve's answering them, and you don't like his answers.
Well, I think there's.
Well, that's,
So, no, you disagree with his answer, so you feel
Well,
like
the
we don't have
notion,
enough
the notion of an
information.
insurance requirement now is a new part of the conversation.
But you know what, we do have to vote.
okay,
Let's
okay.
vote on this, and,
Conversation.
Let's vote.
if this, the details about this kind of thing have to be hammered out at a later date.
Okay.
We can,
So
Okay,
just for
so the-
clarification, I would like some clarification. So we are going to have to hire one RN.
I can't really see
There's
a way
no way around
that.
it. And
mean,
the
realistically-
possibility of keeping the
Okay,
current.
so that conversation is a conversation to be had with our insurance company, yes?
No, I mean,
Well, you said it was an insurance requirement.
Maureen's already had that conversation as part of the negotiation process that.
No,
Right.
is the
Kathy just
notion of
said.
hiring an RN an insurance requirement?
No, it's a practical application of the contract.
Right.
Someone has to deliver, so let's
So we
use
don't,
Miller as an
so we
example.
don't have a third party demanding that we hire an RN. There's no third party demanding it.
No, it's the
Okay.
collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
Wait, so the collective bargaining agreement demands it?
If you take a look.
No,
at one of the
you're
changes-
doing it in the context of because
Yes,
you
they're
can't
saying that
cover
no,
it.
they're not
You're
gonna cover it.
You're inferring and implying it. You're right.
So I guess there would theoretically be some other way that could be worked out to do it. And we could ask, a junior high administrator to go over to Miller every day if Kelly wasn't available and the nurse wasn't there
Or a
to administer
junior,
meds.
or a junior high nurse or a
But
senior
the junior high
nurse.
nurse
or-
is at the junior high.
You know what, and actually, I mean, that's a poor path to go down, because as a practical matter, I think you schedule those medication events, don't you?
During the entire course of the day.
The entire course of the day.
I would say if you talk to any of the principals.
How do we do it now with well, I won't even ask
The
that
health
question.
aides
I won't even ask that question.
Because the health aides do it now, okay? So, and they are not going to do it anymore. All right?
Unless they volunteer.
No, they have been advised by their representation that this is not something that they should do anymore.
And if they
as a
can listen to their
result-
representation or not, it's going to end up being a personal
No,
choice.
because as a result, the administration got advice from insurance that says, do not let them volunteer to do this. So that's where we are right now with this new contract, okay? So the situation should not arise where people are volunteering to give medication to students. That was very, very clearly one of the goals.
But then it doesn't say that in the contract. If it was so clearly and needed to be
It
stated
does
so
not-
clearly.
it does
No, it
now.
doesn't. It says they cannot be required to. That means there's a possibility that you can't tell them they have to do it, but you could ask them. And if they don't have to say yes to do it. That's how I interpret that.
I thought we removed that language from the new are you looking at the new contract?
I read it before the meeting, but let me pull it up because it's right at the top of
Can you
one of
say it
these
out loud?
pages.
Here, and she knows this contract more intimately than I
Can you
do.
say it out loud, or is it?
Could we take a break?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, can we bring it to a
In
head?
accordance with school code, under no circumstances shall employees except certified school nurses and non-certified registered professional nurses be required to administer medication to students. Employees are not permitted, or are not prohibited from providing emergency assistance to students. That's the language in the contract. So
Well, I
it's
think
that not required.
And if
That
you,
leaves the possibility that someone could say, I'm okay with that.
and we're hearing that administrators can.
Correct.
Administrators
Correct.
can.
So the chance that like if the certified nurse is not in the building and the administrator is not in the building, if you have a dire emergency, no one is telling the staff that they have to.
Right.
So, okay. Should we vote? I guess it's to keep, let's do this, keep the certified nurse or eliminate it to .2. Does that sound fair, everyone?
Well, that's the issue in front of it.
That's
in
what's
front of us.
in front of us. That's, I'm saying. Kathy,
Which is it?
do you want to vote to keep the certified nurse, keep that employee, or reduce that employee to .2, which is what's on our,
Okay, reduce to .2.
so you want to reduce to .2? Okay. Linda?
Reduce to .2.
Joel?
Keep.
I will say keep as well. Dan?
We need to fix the problem about the medications, and we need to fix it soon. And I'm going to put that directly on WESPA, whoever's here from WESPA. We need to fix that. But for the time being, we'll keep, I'll support keeping the certified nurse.
Keep.
Kathy?
Reduce.
Okay, so we have a vote of 4 to keep the certified nurse. So we are keeping the certified nurse, and so that, we'll take that off our lists.
the model's going to be screwed up anyway.
Right.
It's going to be woefully short.
Right. Okay.
Now, may I ask for a break?
Yeah, do you want to take a 5-minute break? Okay. 5-minute break? We're back from break, back in session.
Okay, picking up. There are, we still have left unresolved the curriculum director question, and then the other two personnel items on list one to resolve are the question of the Westmont Junior High School secretary, half-time, and the question of replacing a SACID secretary with a WESPA secretary for the student services director.
And I have a note that we're going to come.
Which one, or both, or how do you want to tackle these? Because should we finish the curriculum director first, or should we deal with the secretarial questions?
Do the secretaries first.
Okay, secretaries first.
Okay. Go ahead. We're talking about the Westmont Junior High secretary?
Westmont Junior High secretary, it's on list one, it's $30,263.
And that's going to part-time.
Yes,
That's not right.
No, that's
Should
not
be
right.
15.
Yeah.
should be 15.
Yeah,
This says
originally,
30.
It was always
I understand that
30.
that's just an error. It should be 15.
yeah, it should be 15.
And how many secretaries are there? Can you refresh my memory?
What's that?
How many secretaries are there?
There are 2 right now.
There's 2, so just one is going
So
part-time?
there's actually 2, and then the SACID secretary who's there, but doesn't really work with the building staff, but is in that same space.
So they would be down to 1.5?
Right.
Do you really think that they can cover the duties at 1.5?
You know, it's like anything else. I'm sure Ron would say he'd like to have 2, but I think it's, if you're going to do that versus cutting, a sport or something else. I mean, Dan's point, you're going to have to make some cuts. As we look at cuts to make, when we sat together originally, all the union officers, so, all the union presidents from all 3 associations, and all the administrators, we came down with this list. We felt that was something that in the end, everybody could live with. It clearly wouldn't be our first choice, but, it's better than cutting, a reading specialist, for instance.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, should we take any more comments? Kathy?
I'm okay.
Okay. Joel? Okay, and I'll say okay. Dan?
Okay.
Diane?
Okay.
Okay, and?
Okay.
Okay, Westmont Junior High secretary. One of the secretaries will be moved to part-time, and that amount should be, what was that amount?
15,000.
15,000.
SACID secretary presently working for the,
Add a fly to that ointment. There are several people in those positions in SACID where, for whatever reason, the person didn't want to leave their SACID seniority but wanted the work in the district. What has happened this year, because they're expensive at this point, they've been in those positions for many years, is that everybody is going back to SACID and saying, take that person back. So Dr. Volpe has spoken to me. One thing he's going to do is start to rotate those people. So if you want a SACID employee, that's fine, but he's not going to let them stay in any one position for more than 2 years. Because what happens is then in a time of economic downturn like we're in, he gets hit where he's going to have to get rid of all his people who've been working in his district, in his offices, and take all these expensive people back. And so just be aware that if the board says, yes, we're going to keep a SACID secretary, that is not a guarantee that it will be the same SACID person you have now, which I think further emphasizes the reason why this is a good decision.
What is the dollar amount in savings?
18,000.
Yeah, just slight of $18,000.
I will weigh in here that this is something that, there's a letter in our orange packets tonight that's dated April 22nd. I wish we had had this before this.
Well, just,
But we
I had
have-
asked her to have that information to me by Tuesday so I could have it in your packets. I didn't get it until Friday,
Well,
just to clarify.
we have email. When I'm looking at this, and if I look at, again, other administrators weighing in, and we've seen that in the past, as I look at this letter from Ms. Clowder, she talks about the fact that what she's asking is to hold this off till next year, just specifically because of some other significant changes in personnel that are occurring. And in addition to the response to intervention, the RTI model that's coming in. And the fact that this particular person has been with the district as long as they have, and they do have some incredible institutional knowledge. And if we could, to the extent that you're saying that there's a possibility that this person wouldn't be in there, I would ask that this be taken off of this position, especially since we have, this person has been in our district for all of this time, and the Director of Student Services is weighing in specifically that this job is not just a secretarial job. It's a very specific job. And again, I'm trying to read this letter as quick as I can. So I'm saying I would like to take this off of this for now and look at it again next year, which is what our Director of Student Services is asking us to do.
Okay, but I think, Dr. Ball, didn't you just mention that Mr. Volpe said that there's a possibility that if she stayed, that she wouldn't necessarily be assigned to our school?
And that's
correct.
what I asked, if we could find that out.
You know, it's not even
Or we-
necessarily that we would get this employee
Well,
back.
considering that we're trying to find savings.
I understand.
I would move that this stay on the list.
Well, and I also just, for clarification, yes, Linda is saying that, clearly there's a burden in training a new secretary, but because of the other secretarial cuts that are being made, at least two of the principals are also going to be training new secretaries.
Absolutely.
So to use that criteria to not cut this position is, I think,
But this is a
unfortunate.
one-person office.
Well, so is the principal's office at the
Yeah.
high school.
I think that's unfair.
But I think what we have in front of us is that you have a very different position. I think the Director of Student Services is not in the office for the majority of the time. I would venture to say that the principals at the buildings are. And I think if we, again, if we look at the letter that's in front of us, it talks about how the fact that this office is manned by somebody while the Director of Student Services is not there the majority of the time
And-
because
Well, I
of
think
the job that
principals are in
she's
their offices that
doing.
much
I
either.
understand it. I think that letter is very compelling, and I clearly see her point. I would tell you, from my standpoint, and I sit in a different place, my perspective is that I don't think that that's a compelling argument. I think that there's a savings of $18,000 here that is a pretty straightforward, easy decision to make in context of the other decisions being made.
Can we
I
call,
think-
can we call, I'm sorry. go ahead.
I was just going to say,
wanna call it-
I see a ripple effect here where Mrs. Clowder is going to be spending a lot of time, doing training, and I think that's going to ultimately hurt our students. And I think children aren't going to get services because there's no one there to facilitate that process, because there's a lot of training going on. And if we do this, I'd like to see, at some point this individual we know is going to leave the district, or going to, that we could get somebody in there to properly train to do this and run, if you're going to keep a one-person office.
And I guess I would say that too. This directly impacts the students. And I would respectfully say that this, yes, whereas we do have a boatload of money to find, I would say that this isn't the $18,000 that we look at. And this was really not on the list until just this last round. So I am respectfully asking, and we can certainly vote, that this be.
But it's 18 on top of the 46.
Let's call the question.
Let's call the question. Okay, the question is, do we keep this Director of Student Services Secretary?
The SASD secretary as
Right.
opposed to replacing it with
Right.
Westmont.
With the Westmont person.
Kathy? Oh, let's go this way, Kathy.
I'd like to keep it on the list.
Keep it on the list.
I'd like to keep it on the list with, her argument is compelling, but I need some dollars here.
Go to a Westmont secretary.
Keep it on the list.
Yes.
I want to keep this person.
I would like to keep the SASD secretary.
I would like to keep it on the list.
Keep it on the list.
Okay.
So we're down to finishing the conversation about the curriculum director. List 1 conversations. There's other stuff on list 2 if we want
Right.
to tackle it, but given the hour, I'll suggest that we
Right.
finish this conversation,
Okay.
do a little bit of math.
Okay, Diane, you had asked, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
You had asked to put that off. Did you want it? We have, at this point, we have 3 voting to eliminate, 3 voting to keep.
I was hoping to get to the dollar amount to make a decision here.
Yeah, is it possible to hold this conversation, figure out the dollar amount of the other decisions have been made, and then you can come back and look at all of your other potential options next time? Because that's really, you're only talking about, at that point, a couple of staffing decisions. Most of the other ones you've made.
Well, why don't we ask Diane?
Like I said, I was hoping to get to a dollar amount, like Dr. Ball had said.
And the dollar amount?
Well, I mean, the dollar amount that we're trying to
Right
get to,
there.
we're way short.
Right.
I know we're
We're
waiting.
just way short.
Right.
So, I mean, there's not even a question about whether or not we're finding enough dollars. We're not.
I know, but what about the negotiation question? And how much money can possibly?
Even still,
For next year.
reticent to
get
say this out
next-
loud, but there's no contract that gets us outside, underneath red.
Yeah.
We bleed. There's no contract.
I'm
that gets-
talking about getting us from here to next year.
Well, till 2012 or 13, yeah, I mean, but you still have such big issues.
Right, but I
And
think
again,
that's
In
significant.
fairness, I mean, I think it's a binary decision. You've acknowledged it's a binary decision. I don't think there's a halftime answer here.
And we're looking at all of list 1, so I think we should
Well,
ask that question.
I do like Dr. Ball's idea. I'd like to table this for now, until the next meeting, that one item. And then, didn't you say something to the fact that we could look at the other lists and,
Well, I think at this point, especially considering the time,
Yeah.
take these lists, let Maureen put the numbers back together, look at what this means. You'll see sort of the holistic view of all the other potential cuts being made. We can come back to you hopefully with clarification in a couple of those places where, for instance, what that would mean for department coordinators, for instance, what that would look like, and you can see all of that. And then at that point, you have to balance out all of those items, the curriculum director and all the other items that are on list 2, and determine which, if any, of those cuts you want to make.
So we have 3, and effectively an abstain, that's fine. Just rough math, and Maureen clearly is going to put the numbers all back together, but just rough math. We're a little bit shy of $500,000.
There's one more item on here, the superintendent salary reduction, 12.5. Is that something that is for this year? That's on list 1.
No, that was for next year.
That was for next year? So that's not, so we'll take that off the list. There's not a
Yes.
savings there. Okay.
So I think we've resolved
You want
Almost
to talk
all of
about the other new one that was added for first grade breakfast for the first week of school?
breakfast.
Oh.
yeah.
I think
Right.
everybody's okay with that, aren't
Yeah, I'm okay with
First
that.
grade
Yeah, we're good
breakfast,
with
The lunch, first grade lunch.
$1,000.
Yeah, right.
So we'll add that.
So, I mean, just to be clear as well, I mean, we're not talking, at this point, there were a number of public comments about the elimination of third grade accelerated math. We're not, you know, we're clearly not even touching that.
We're not touching any
We're
of
not
this.
touching things like the assistant principals or the media specialists. We're not touching any really of those list two things at this point. We are clearly going to put together some numbers and figure out where we stand, but I think given where we stand as of now, yeah, we've clearly made cuts, but they haven't been nearly as deep as we need them to be, to not be bleeding money. We are hemorrhaging money. We will continue to hemorrhage money.
And I think, again, the class size issue, and I understand that some people are very adamant about not raising class sizes, but the $67,000 savings is based on existing enrollment.
Yep.
You know, one thing we've seen over the last few years is a number of students who had gone to private school coming back into the district. And many of our classes are such that they're close to those class size numbers, where if those numbers go up much, instead of being a $67,000, you know, savings, you could be looking at $180,000. And so I really think the board needs to consider, you know, if you're going to move off of that dime and try to recover those class size savings, you may potentially, you know, put yourself at another $120,000 or so at risk, pretty easily, actually, because where our numbers are. I mean, our numbers aren't, you know, again, we're talking about one class that instead of two classes of 15 will be one class of 28 probably, and that's 67,000. But there's always the possibility that the enrollment goes the other way, and that it costs the district $120,000 to staff a couple more classrooms. So I think you should really put some more consideration in that before you back off of that.
For me, that conversation should probably be held in the context of a broader, you know, especially at the pre-K and K through 5 level. That should be a grade level center conversation that incorporates the class size conversation simultaneously. Because at that point, we're not talking about, there's potentially much larger savings events.
Right, and again, the issue with the grade level centers right now is the Title I.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, I don't think, no, I think that's the bigger conversation for me.
Right.
Before we move off of this, do we want to go back to this approval of student fees that we put?
Oh, yeah, we should.
So let's go back to that.
Go back.
So are we on G or that?
Or of the consent agenda?
This is the consent agenda for approval of student fees. We pulled that out to have that discussion with.
Speaking of which, how much did we say that we agreed that we were going to try to recover in additional sports and clubs fees?
I don't think we,
Tonight?
you all decided.
You didn't decide.
Because there's these 3 line items, right?
The 27.5,
Soft
right,
sports,
right,
junior high clubs and junior high sports.
right.
$70,000 more or less.
So, no. So
No.
the question is, what target do you want to set so that Maureen can figure out the math to make the fee schedules work?
I'm not sure if that's how you really want to look at it, Dan.
Why is that?
Well, I'm just looking at what people paid last year.
Mhm.
And if you're going to double or triple an amount, you really, I'm going to have a hard time, I think some people are going to have a hard time swallowing that. I'm just going to caution you with that.
I understand. I appreciate it.
So we
But the thought about not having at the junior high or and high school, is it? Where after so many sports you get waived?
Right, I understand.
Is that idea still possible, though, that to not
Well,
have
that's
that
in
waived?
here.
Okay.
That's in the
Okay.
It's proposed.
recommendation.
Okay.
I'm going
And
to
I
say.
agree with that.
I'm going to say, by the way, on band, you went from 35 to 37, band and drama. I'm going to suggest you go from 35 to 45.
Where are you looking from 35 to 30?
35, 37 on
Yeah.
participation fees.
Okay, that's grade 6 through 8, and then
9 through 12.
Yeah.
I was looking at 9 through
35,
12.
Oh, okay.
37.
35 and then 37s. I'm saying go to 35, from 35 to 45.
So for,
From
Oh, you wanna go
excuse
to
me, from 30
45.
From 37 to 45, I'm sorry, my bad. As my kids say.
and then leave.
What about the junior high?
The $27 amount.
27 to 30, because
You want-
it would,
The bottom box,
$3.
so that, I know this
Is
is confusing to look
proposed.
at. The bottom box is for the proposed.
Is
The
proposed.
top box is what they paid last year.
okay,
So at
For junior?
band, we're at 25 for my proposed for next year,
yep.
30 for 6 through 8, and 37 through 9, 12. So you want to see that 30, 35, and 45?
No, 25,
Mm-hmm,
I'll say 25, 35, 45.
okay.
for band,
Yes.
Okay.
35, 45.
And then on drama, 35, 45.
And then sports, we have from, if we, junior high, from 35 to 50. Since sports is more expensive in there, do we want to think about going higher than, the proposed participation fees are junior high 50, senior 75. Do we want to leave those there?
I mean, I think they should be more because we're not making any cuts at all in sports. So, I mean, some revenue has to come in to offset that, even though it's not going to be very much.
Should we go to 75 for junior and 100 for,
I don't know what other districts are doing. Does anyone heard? I know I've heard numbers of over 100, but
Ironically, I'm usually the one who sends out that survey to all the other districts, but I haven't had the time to do it this year. So.
Because we've been doing FOIA requests.
do we want to do then the 75 for junior and 100 for senior?
I'm okay with that.
Maureen?
I would think that that would be pretty comparable to other districts, yeah.
Okay,
Even based on last year's fees, when I did send the survey out, I would think
Do
that
you
100
have
at the high
last
school.
year's survey information?
Yes, I don't have it with me, but I do have it.
But this sounds comparable. Have we now done what you needed to do for this document?
Well, you still need to approve it. So you took it.
I know,
off
what
the
I'm saying
consent.
is, but yeah, okay, okay. So,
So is everybody else okay, 75 and
Yes.
100?
yeah, 75 and 100. So we've changed participation fees, athletic, junior high 75, senior high 100. We've made band 1 through 5, $25, junior high $35, senior $45.
Well, can we just hang on for 1 second, because it's currently at the junior high $35, and you're putting it up to 100?
No,
Oh, no.
75? Okay, so that's
No.
more, that's like a,
that's more than double.
that's
For
more than
athletic.
double. Isn't that a little steep?
If you went to 70 instead of 75.
What if you just the
double
kind
Wait,
of
wait, wait,
percentage
wait, go to
increase
75,
that is?
30,
Athletic.
30,
At the junior
70
high,
instead
I'm
of,
sorry.
yeah.
But the one
Why
thing
don't
we
we
did
double
not
it?
do
Yeah,
tonight
double
is
it.
we didn't cut those
Right.
programs.
Well, I
So-
get it. Actually,
Yeah.
they're suggesting go from 35 to 70,
70?
which is a double.
That's,
That's fine.
Just to make it a
That's-
double, not more than double.
that's fine.
And then we want to go 90 at the high school? To double that one?
That would be.
45 to 90
More tolerable.
at athletic? Okay, 90? Okay, and then drama, junior high is going to 35, and drama at senior high is going to 45. Okay? So,
Then, just to point out, one other thing, we did say $1.25 on the vending.
$1.25, yes. So we need to take a roll call on this, right, Judy?
Yes.
Yes.
Because this is money.
Okay, and currently there are no course fees, but we're only going to suggest $10.
Say that again, Linda, please.
I'm just trying to
right.
like
No, you're
spread
right.
out the pain a little
We
bit.
talked about that,
I
yeah.
mean, the fees for the athletics are going way up.
Right.
And the fees for band and drama are only going up a little.
You know, here's the concern with raising course fees, you know, at this point in the year after we've already done enrollment and we staffed,
You're right, and schedule, yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay, makes sense?
Yeah.
That's why they're minimalistic.
Okay.
Maybe we could look at that another
Well, for next year,
Next
the
year,
kids
that's
have
what I'm
already
saying.
planned
Next
their
year, right,
course
right.
work.
Okay, so we know what the changes are that everybody in agreement, so we'll take a roll
Marie,
call.
can you repeat what the drama changes
Yes.
are?
Drama is going to junior high at 35 and senior high 45.
Thank you.
Okay, then roll call, Ms. McMahon?
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Luback,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes. Okay, I think we have everything. You know, hold on, Dan, we had one more thing that we said we'd come back to. Reduce professional development options.
Oh,
I have a
well,
note
we
on that.
approved 20. The question is, do we want to go to 30?
Right, okay.
I would just go down the line, Marie. I think-
Okay, let's go
This
down the
isn't
line.
a real hard one.
Do you want 20 on the page or 30? This is in about the middle of the page.
I'm going to go with what's on the page.
The 20.
20.
Kathy,
20.
20 or
Correct.
30? This is reduce professional development.
Thank you. 20.
20. Diane?
20.
Dan?
20.
Okay, I'll go 20. Joel?
30?
20.
20. Kathy? Okay. Okay, so then reduce professional development options will be at 20, and at the next meeting, we will revisit the curriculum director position off of list 1. Okay, I think we have everything on these lists.
Are we considering any of the other things on list 2?
No.
At the next meeting?
No, I
Well,
think,
at the next meeting, I think if board members want to bring other things up from list 2,
Right.
we should bring them up at that point, but
Okay.
let's figure out what our numbers are at this point, and then we'll go from there.
the other thing I would, okay, never mind. Okay, superintendent's report. Wait a minute, no. I had put in an item on number 5 that I'm going to pull till we get to number 8, and then I'll bring up the pieces why I asked to have that put in there. So the superintendent's report?
Just a couple of things in the interest of time. One is that you will see that, again, through Maureen's auspices and her hard work, we've, again, gotten a statement of financial recognition from the State Board of Education. The cost containment things, obviously, we've talked about. Enrollment, or as I just articulated a little bit ago, there's some additional room for students right now between Manning and Miller. The issue is if the class size guidelines change from what's in the original sort of assumptions for cost containment, you do run the risk, if you're going to hold to 25 and 28, that you may have to hire a couple additional teachers potentially at the elementary level, depending upon what our enrollment does over the summer. And then the junior high and high school are going to go, they're very flat, their enrollments right now. They're very, very stable. And they also have the results from the pupil personnel survey. And you can take a look at those at your leisure. I don't know if you have any questions about them.
That satisfies the compliance
makes
audit.
the ROE happy, yes. We're good.
Is a note in your report about recent FOIA requests, and I assume that they're also included in the public packet.
Yes.
As a side note, noted that there were a number of them, and that a few of them were quite broad, asking for as many as 10 years of invoices. I asked Mrs. Jones how much time, if she had to guess, she spent on that. She estimated that she had spent the better part of her week working on that, as well as monopolizing most of the time of her staff. So perhaps as many as 70 or 80 man-hours making copies and sending out information. If you need information, please ask for it. And we are at a point in the school year and at a point in our process where I would just beg and plead for your thoughtfulness about the time that people need to spend on their work as well. So, Maureen, thank you and your staff for all the effort that you do on FOIL.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is board reports.
Are we the only board that met then, the Buildings and Grounds? At our committee, we did decide to leave next year's list intact with an addition of a $5,500 item for Manning's security camera. We also recommend that the school board seek a proposal to determine what the cost to fix Manning, our 90-year-old building, versus what it would cost to build a new building would be. Manning is the oldest building in the district. This proposal will answer the questions about air conditioning, electrical issues, and energy. This proposal will help this board and our community see in dollars what we need to correct Manning's current state. So we're asking the board to approve going to Mr. Cashman and seeking a proposal.
Can I make a suggestion that, and I understand at the committee meeting, the conversation was mostly about Manning, but it's probably much more cost efficient for him to look at both elementary buildings at the same time.
That's fine.
So just to be clear, what we're looking for is to have Cashman do a study as to what the costs would be to look at the elementary buildings.
Correct, the dated pieces of it.
And that's it for now, or are we looking at replacing?
Both.
What's it?
So we're going to look at both costs.
Correct.
It's an analysis of what's
To get a comparison.
how efficient is it to replace or repair, upgrade.
And I guess the conversation was that if we did, then we would be talking about a referendum to go for a new building if that was where we were going because of the cost.
I'm not sure that that's the absolute answer to it. I don't know. I think for all the times that we've been told we can't do this, we can't do that, this will answer those questions. Why? Mr. Mayoris was very clear that some of Manning's electrical is still in the cloth version of it. There's only 2 pads of power coming into there, and they're both maxed out. It is difficult to add anything electrically based into that building. And it is something that's been ongoing.
I think this is a really good idea to look at this because it is certainly something that's on the facilities report. And I think the only way the board can actually come to a decision is to have this in front of us as to what the dollar amounts are, should we look at either way. So I think that's a good use of our.
I mean, personally, I could put this off for a couple of months. I think we've got some other pressing issues we need to kind of work on as a board rather than pursuing, I mean, I know we really won't be doing a lot with it until the report comes to us, but I think we should be, our attention should be focused on finding an interim superintendent, and I don't want to be distracted with, this is kind of a big discussion, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it's okay for him to get started because it's going to take him time to do that. It'll
Any
be
idea how long this would
a
take
while
them
before we
to
get
put together?
report.
He talked about that it would take quite a bit of time.
I would say, I mean, he's going to put a proposal together. He'll have a timeline in that proposal. I'm assuming you get a proposal in time to act at either May or June on accepting the proposal.
Okay.
And then I would assume it would take him at least a year to do the work. Maybe not quite, but probably close to that year range.
So what the committee is suggesting is that we move forward with a vote to go to approve that Cashman look into this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay with that.
Okay, Kathy, you're okay? Linda? Joe?
Okay.
Yeah, myself too. I'm saying yes. Dan?
Absolutely.
Diane?
Yes.
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 And Kathy? Okay. Okay, so we have approved that Steve Cashman will look into what those costs are associated with our elementary buildings. Okay. Is that it from you?
That's it. That's all I have.
And did you, okay, so we're not doing anything else at this point? Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to discuss the process to hire an interim superintendent. And I had initially asked to have that on there, but there was some cross on this. And again, I spoke at length, not at length, I spoke with Dr. Hansen, who we had talked to before. She has supplied us with a couple of people, and spoke briefly with our attorney. And she had said that the pieces that we should be discussing in open session is the process, which basically is number 4, set dates. And the rest of the conversations that's in front of us that I guess, Steve, did you put this together, this sheet here? Okay, so you put this together. She was saying the discussion is that the rest of these conversations would absolutely be something we would have to do once we look at the resumes that are in front of us. We have about 25 legitimate resumes in front of us to look at. So the question at this point should be from Dr. Hansen. Again, Dr. Hansen is the superintendent, exec connect, who we have hired to help us with our strategic planning for next year, and it was suggested that we touch base with her about this process in terms of bringing in an interim superintendent. And both their attorney and Dr. Hansen had strongly suggested that we set up dates in terms of what we're going to discuss. And then once the board looks at these resumes that we have in front of us, then I think the rest of the questions kind of fall into place. So I will bring that to the table.
In fairness, let's just beg the question, if there's agreement about looking for an interim superintendent at this point as opposed to a permanent one.
Okay, that's...
Because it was raised as a question.
Right.
So, and I'll just say out loud that my bent on the notion is I think an interim superintendent is the right choice. Because the time at this point, a permanent search would be so rushed. It would not allow real input from either the staff or the community. We have any number of amazing controversial items going on that a permanent person would have to walk into and quite frankly put them at an extreme disadvantage with any number of people immediately. And then I just also happen to think that given everything else that's going on right now, I'm not sure that we as a board and we as human beings, certainly me, I wonder about whether or not I can devote an appropriate amount of time to a real analysis and to a real sort of look at a permanent person. That's not to say that I won't work hard at looking at an interim person, at finding the right kind of interim person, but a permanent decision is a much different decision, and I think it's especially important to seek the input of other constituents in the community.
Okay, well, let's follow that up then. Why don't we go around and see what...
I concur. I think the community and the stakeholders needed adequate time to look at a long-term superintendent. So at this point, interim, what the interim looks like, whether it's 2 people or 1.
Okay, right, okay.
So then we won't involve the community in the interim selection process? Is that what you're kind of implying?
No, in the interim process?
In the
Interim process, largely no.
Right.
Yeah, largely no.
No. I mean, yeah, okay. Kathy?
So you are saying we will not include anyone else in the interim search?
Both, well, no, both Dr. Hansen and Terry Hodges weighed in very strongly that this, for the interim is a clear board decision. Clear, straight board decision for an interim. And that is why Dr. Hansen told me that she would be more than happy for me to share with everybody that she would strongly suggest not bringing in a permanent because of the extreme amount of time and dedication that needs to do that right now, and it's May. Because at that point, we would be bringing in somebody permanent, and right now, that it's a clear board decision to bring in an interim, and we have in front of us about 25 resumes that we can look at and start this process.
I guess my concern with that is that I do feel there needs to be some input other than the 7 of us, at least from administration. They're the people that are going to be working with the superintendent on a daily basis. And to not ask for their input concerns me.
Well, that question was actually something that I asked, and both, again, looking at people who have done this before, weighed in very strongly that you don't interview up, that administration should not be part of the process in terms of an interim because you don't hire your boss, so to speak, and that is a clear board decision.
I'm not asking for them to hire, I'm asking for their input and their thoughts.
I can kind of see what she's saying, that there's a piece that the administration can give me that I don't bring to the table.
Absolutely.
And you know what,
You can certainly have individual conversations with administration about, questions, but to bring them in for the interview process, I don't know if that's
I never said to bring
appropriate.
them in for the interview process.
Yeah, not for the interview process.
No.
You know, can I, that's a good point. Can we talk about this in terms of after we get started on this process? Because we haven't even done any of this yet. Because
Well, just to ask the question, how would you incorporate their feedback?
How would I incorporate it?
Yeah.
I would want some feedback from them as to what they're looking for, what they think that
Okay.
we've been.
So, I mean, we can ask them for that now. I mean,
No,
and ask,
well,
right?
And I think, too, maybe a possibility, I'm just throwing ideas out there, is, maybe if we have like a couple finalists or something, maybe they can meet with the administrative team, and then maybe we could just get their feedback as to, what they thought or something, because like Diane said, they might have a perspective or something that, we just didn't see.
well, that's a very good
Yeah,
point.
and
Why don't
not
we
suggesting that they
do
would
this?
interview or have a vote in who we eventually hired, because clearly that is our job to do.
So then if we can, that sounds great. Does that satisfy what you're asking?
Let's work out the details on that later.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, I think it's just, we just haven't done anything yet, and I think that it's important to at least get going on this, considering that it's May. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this, why I brought it up, and to just talk about those timeframes, and if we could move forward with this. And if we can spend, I think we're about close to done. If we can, spend a little bit of time tonight in closed session looking at the resumes that we have so that we can start setting these interviews up because of the time frame that we have in front of us in terms of our availability, the candidates' availability, and again, if we're going to have a first round of interviews and then a second round of interviews and then be, get to a point potentially where we have 2 and then bring administration in.
We may even be able to just get it done in one round, depending on how many we have.
Well,
Given the
That's
time, and
right.
we did talk about having a special meeting the week of May 2nd, and I would rather ask the board members to come to that meeting with, 5.
Yeah,
Because I don't want to
have
go in
mine
there.
already.
I already
don't wanna
have
go in
mine.
there
I have
and-
6. I
Well,
narrowed it down to 6.
I guess that was the question. I asked everybody if they could bring that tonight, so we could do that tonight.
That's a long conversation.
Well,
It took a long time to
If there's a lot
go-
of agreement, on a couple of them,
You know what, I feel like via email communication, we kind of decided that we would go over process and we would not do that part tonight unless we finished our meeting at like 8:30 or something. Does anybody else recall that conveation?
We
It was an
can,
email.
we can certainly put this off another week if you want to. I'm just reiterating what the date is. So if we want to put this off till Tuesday is the date that seemed to work for everybody, is that still a doable
Is it
date for a
Tuesday or
special meeting?
Thursday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, so we will set up a special meeting on Tuesday, May 4th, to review these.
And in the meantime,
Yes.
we've got a week to ask administrators for their feedback about what, and the WTA, what they think are important things that we should be looking for in an interim superintendent.
Then, Dan, can I ask, do we want to have a couple of board members volunteering to do that, to gather that information?
I don't see why Dr. Ball can't just ask them to send along their thoughts in writing.
To the board?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can get that,
Did we say what time?
7?
7?
Does that work? Okay.
And where? At Manning?
Judy, we'll talk tomorrow. Try Manning, the community room. Okay. Okay. That was what I was looking for.
So before we come together next Tuesday, what are we looking for? I think we started to go around the room and then we got on to discussion. Is this strictly a part-time person or a full-time person?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. We did go to that. I think the question was whether we were looking for interim.
Kathy didn't have a comment.
We didn't get, that's where we stopped. So,
Some of that hinges on specific candidates, I think, too.
no, we're talking about whether it's interim or permanent.
No, she's suggesting full-time or part-time is the
Yeah,
question.
no.
Not interim, like it's an interim, but is it
Right.
full-time or part-time?
Well, and I think that's
for
gonna
me,
be-
I'm open to a full-time person.
You are.
I'm
Okay.
open to retired people who might have to cover things functionally. But, you know, it really is candidate-specific, I think. But I'm open to all of those conversations. I think what I'm looking for is just a high-quality or a couple really high-quality people to fill this role for us for the time being.
And are you, when you're paging through these, are you looking for someone that has had high school experience, curriculum experience? I mean, I'd like to know what criteria.
That's what's important to you. I mean, I just kind of picked what was important to me. So I think as you're going through them, it's what's
Again, I think
important to
that's
you.
candidate-specific, so I think we should talk about that next week.
And I think once you look at, I know, because I have looked
No,
at
wait a minute.
them.
I want to come to next week's meeting. I don't want to come and then sit and talk about
Right.
what we're going to look for. I
Right.
want to come
Right.
with a list of candidates that people are
And
saying,
do
these
that.
are, out of this
Absolutely.
pile, this is who I think would do our district good.
Right.
Right, that,
So that we
yes.
can move this process. If we meet and talk more, we're going to be, into July, and I want to go on vacation.
So how many, Joel? How many should we come with?
Well, I mean, I pared mine down. I've got about 7, but I can probably kick a couple off of that list.
I have
you know.
6.
So
I have
I think
7.
I'm looking for enough that maybe we'll find some consensus among us, and then we can zero in on those. If 6 of us say, I like this person, then I don't see a lot of discussion necessary. We would probably try to schedule that person. My concern is if we delay this, someone else is going to gobble these people up, and we're going to get stuck with what the leftovers. So it's that time of the year, and it's already late, so I want to move forward.
Joel, will you share your criteria with us, or?
I'll talk to you. I'm not going to do it here, but I'll happy to share with you exactly what I did after the meeting.
And I think it's clearly, I think it's driven by the candidates that have.
Well, no, I don't think it should be driven by the
Yeah,
candidates.
No, I'm
Really,
saying
I
what
mean,
you have in front of you, you can look at as a board member and look and see and come up with what you see in front of you, because that's what we did. We decided that we were going to post this position, so these are the people that have responded
You're
to that.
asking, I was looking for somebody with a superintendent experience, because not all the candidates had that. And I
Right.
thought that was important because of what we're looking for. Whether or not they had curriculum background, some of them did, some of them didn't. I kind of like that idea, especially considering the cuts that we had on the table. Then some of it was some of their some leadership kind of background in dealing with the stakeholders. Not all of them spoke to that, but that's the kind of things I walked in with wanting.
And, you know, I'll piggyback with that too. When I looked at it, I mean, there's some people that clearly haven't even been a superintendent. And I think we need a strong leader right now in this interim phase. And I think, you know, for myself, when I looked at it, some people clearly rose to that, where some people it was easy to kind of not look at because they had no experience in that. And for the interim position, that's what I found when I looked.
I mean,
Did
I
you
agree. I think
find that?
previous experience was very high priority to me. And then I kind of looked at the curriculum and the, I noticed some had financial. I thought that was high. So I looked at those things. So.
Okay. So we'll meet on that, and then everybody will come, and rather than maybe limit it to a number, why don't we say, come with your top 6 to 8? Is that, so for those of us that have done it, you have what, how many you have?
6.
You have 6?
I think I have 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think I have 7. So is that fair?
It's fair.
Okay. And then we can go from there and discuss the rest of it at that time. And okay. I guess we're on to finance.
In the interest of time, I'm just going to ask for any questions on it. We're all okay with that.
Please have enough.
Nothing standingly different than every other month, I say, so I don't want to repeat myself. You all got the answers to the questions that Marie posed?
Thank you. Is your question just on the whole financial, are we?
Yes, the
Okay,
whole.
okay, that's what I want to say. So, no questions? Okay, then in terms of the approval of the April 10, 2010, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the bills for the month of April 2010 in the amount of $1,135,188.55. Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
So moved.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, are there any public comments?
Hi, my name is Jonathan McKay. A request for somebody in this group, or maybe the superintendent. There's a lot of things been talked about today in terms of big impacts to families and students. Not nearly what they're going to be next year when the next round of cuts have to happen, but things like fees may be doubling, and we don't have a newspaper reporter here, so nothing's going to get out. I know we're on TV, but the reality is a minority of the folks will sit and watch this entire meeting, much less what finally came out for it. So I'm just hoping that we can get out press releases to explain just the direness of the situation. I mean, Dan talked about how much we've cut tonight, which may be $500,000, and what's our projected deficit next year?
$1 million.
$1 million. So the projected deficit next year is $1 million. We've only cut half of that. We're eating into the funds we have left, which means we've run out of money earlier than we'd like to. And all of that needs to be communicated, probably in a series of press releases. Unfortunately, we don't have our newspaper folks here on a regular basis. We're too small for the Trib Local to send a reporter over. And so those two newspapers, the Progress and Trib Local, will hit a few more folks. I'm just hoping that this board and the administration can somehow get a series of articles out on a regular basis to just start getting the community understanding how tough this is going to be. If in fact we are going to need the teachers to share this pain and help this out, it could lead to challenges there too. And so we need our community to understand the situation, especially if downstream we're looking at something like even beginning the conversation on a referendum. So you made some big decisions tonight that are going to impact people. Let's get it across the seriousness, and this didn't even come close to addressing the problem. And
You know,
more things
Jonathan,
have to
I
happen.
think I'm just going to say, I actually have a note here about that because I was going to talk about that, and I was going to maybe wait till the next meeting, but I guess what I'm saying is I think we do, one thing we heard from last year is that we do need to communicate to our constituents. So I actually have a note about that kind of thing, to make
Very
sure
good.
that our families know what it is we're doing.
And all of the taxpayers who aren't parents of students who are going to, whose taxpayers pay for this too, and it may have to vote for things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Side note, one of the things we didn't mention tonight, but Linda shared a thought, a couple of people actually privately shared thoughts with me about, at some point in the very near future, after we get through this immediate sort of round of cuts, we desperately need to have a finance committee that includes members of the community and bring them fully up the curve to deal with this question of how, in the long run, are we going to solve the problems that face us, because they're huge.
And Dan, I'm going to add to that. I think, just looking at our committees in general, I think it's kind of, in some ways, pointless to have a board committee that just has 2 members on it and not a lot of input from other people. So I like that idea a lot of having other people involved on these subcommittees. I thought the last Building and Grounds Committee was actually pretty good because, a lot of community members were there, and I think Grant was there, and I can't remember who else. But everyone sat around the tables as if they were part of the committee in some ways and asked some very important questions, and that's how our community gets educated, by letting them come, participate, ask the questions they want to ask, and I thought it went very well. I thought it was a good style of a meeting, and I'd like to see that, and maybe you can add a little more structure to that, but it was nice to see that format.
Just to expand a little bit on your comment, all our committee meetings are open to the public, so maybe we just need to do a better job of promoting them or letting the public know that when they are.
Right, but as far as sitting committee members, you can have other people besides board members on those committees, and I think that's something to look at.
Yeah, I like that suggestion as well. Okay.
One more. My name is Tim Herman. I spoke at the last board meeting too. I just wanted to thank all of you for all of the hard decisions you've had to make. I don't envy the decisions that you've made or any of the decisions that you have to make, including the decisions that are going to be coming up with the contract negotiations with the teachers. And so I just wanted to say thank you for the hard work, and thank you for the work that you have coming in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any others? The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and confidential personnel issues.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes?
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.